Chapter 2679. Time slowly passed. Beigong Yingrua, Beigong Mingshuang, Beigong Tianhuan, and Beigong Zhangqing's faces were covered in beads of sweat. The energy in their bodies was constantly circulating, condensing a vast amount of qi into Du Xiaofu's body. The four of them were doing their best. Such a consumption caused them to slowly become strenuous. You have to hold on. Although vitality has reappeared in that kid's body, it's not stable enough. If you can't hold on, all our efforts will be for naught. Sigh. Looking at the four people in the room, the Skywood Divine Tree Ancestor's palms were also covered in cold sweat. He was a bit nervous. He could naturally tell that the four youths' cultivations were not ordinary. However, they were greatly suppressed in this world after all. They were unable to display their full strength. At this moment, when they asked for help from Du Xiaofu, they were using their full strength. It was clearly a bit strenuous. However, there was nothing they could do about it. If it weren't for the fact that the Skywood Divine Tree Ancestor's strength had yet to recover, he would have gone up himself to help. Hold on. Sigh. The Skywood Divine Tree Ancestor inwardly shouted. His gaze was fixed on the scene in the Du family's ancestral hall. Like the people around him, he was also incomparably nervous. Fortunately, these youths were all extraordinary people. Although a bit of fatigue appeared on their faces, their hands were still very steady. It could be seen that even in the midst of such a huge consumption, their faith was still very firm. Sigh. Suddenly, the Skywood Divine Tree Ancestor's eyes abruptly narrowed. He saw a strange change on Du Xiaofu's body. On his sturdy chest, a dark green light suddenly lit up. With the help of the huge energy vortex above, it continuously devoured the terrifying energy. The vast aura was rapidly absorbed by the jade green light. Then, the light quickly expanded and spread to every part of his body. A strange fluctuation spread out, and under everyone's astonished gazes, the dark green light from Du Xiaofu's body rushed out, and a mystical aura floated above the sarcophagus. Then, a plant in the shape of a grass condensed, releasing a vast and profound aura. This plant was sparkling and translucent. It was shaped like a mushroom, as if it was real. As soon as it appeared, an extremely powerful qi of life qi spread out in the ancestral hall. Other than that, a faint light expanded and covered Du Xiaofu's body, emitting a bright light. It's the grass of undying mysteries! Exclamation point. The Skywood Divine Tree Ancestor couldn't help but softly, the old woman, and Dongli Qingqing, and Dongli Qingqing and Dongli Qingqing. The grass of immortality's ultimacy was similar to the heavenly wood martial vein of the Fang Ji family. They both carried a strong vitality. I didn't expect that the grass of the undying grass in that boy's body would be awakened by the Beigong clan's heavenly wood reverse soul. Now, even if they didn't attack, the awakened qi of life qi could be stabilized on its own. Dongli Qingqing's master also smiled. His aged eyes were full of vigor. Du Tingxian, Du Xiaoyao, Little Xingxing, Du Yunlong, and the others were also overjoyed. Many people knew that Du Xiaofu possessed the grass of immortality ultimacy. However, no one had expected that it would play such a huge role at this time. Not only these people, but the four young experts of the Beigong clan in the room were also beaming with joy. With their strength, they could naturally feel the extraordinariness of the grass of undying. It exuded in qi of life qi. It could be said that the grass of the undying grass had been cultivated to an extremely deep level, and through it, one could grasp the true meaning of the laws of life and soul. It was definitely not inferior to the Beigong clan's cultivation method. The changes in Du Xiaofu's body made the four young people heave a long sigh of relief. Withdraw. Beigong. Beigong Yingrua cried out. After exchanging glances with the other three, they all retracted their fingers and a long breath of air was exhaled from their mouths. As their actions fell, the terrifying energy vortex above the stone coffin slowly dissipated with a woo-woo sound. A huge wave of spirit chi surged out like a spring breeze, spreading in all directions. The four young-looking powerhouses also closed their eyes and quietly adjusted their breathing. However, the huge grass of the undying grass still existed on Du Xiaofu's body. It emitted a gentle light that enveloped his entire body. In the senses of the many experts' primordial spirits, the blood flow in his body gradually slowed down, and he was no different from a normal cultivator. His beating heart also returned to the frequency that an ordinary person should have. The vitality of the physical body has appeared, but why hasn't the soul awakened yet? Du Tingxian, Zhen Qingchun, Du Yunlong, and the others all frowned. Looking at Du Xiaofu in the stone coffin, they were puzzled. Don't worry. His physical body has been reconstructed in the stone coffin. It's already extremely difficult for him to regain his vitality. As for his soul awakening, I'm afraid he still needs some opportunity. However, this opportunity shouldn't be something we can interfere with. However, I think that it won't be long before this kid wakes up again. The Skywood Divine Tree Ancestor smiled and said. As he spoke, he repeatedly nodded, looking at the four Beigong clan juniors with deep satisfaction. Du Tingxian and the others nodded. Du Xiaofu had originally been without vitality. For him to recover to this state in a few short months was truly unimaginable. Hearing the Skywood Divine Tree Ancestor's words, they were no longer too anxious. There would come a day when Du Xiaofu would stand in front of them once more. Not long after, Beigong Yingrua and the other three let out a long sigh of relief at the same time and opened their eyes one after another. Senior! Senior! The four of them walked out of the ancestral hall and respectfully bowed to the Skywood Divine Tree Ancestor. No need to be so courteous. You've worked hard. Senior! The Skywood Divine Tree Ancestor helped them up and smiled. Many thanks for everyone's assistance. Please accept this Du's bow. Senior! Du Tingxian stepped forward and deeply bowed to the four Beigong clan juniors. Many thanks, everyone. Senior! Many thanks, uncle and auntie. Thank you. Little Xingxing, Du Xiaojing, Du Yunlong, Du Xiaoba, Du Xiaohuang, and the others followed behind Du Tingxian and deeply bowed to the four of them. They were the ones who grieved the most about Du Xiaofu's death. Now that they saw his vitality reappear, they felt heartfelt gratitude to the four Beigong clan experts. No need. Thank you. Beigong Yingrua's figure flashed and supported Du Tingxian, saying, the Rock Emperor has the grass of immortality origin in his body. Even if we didn't do anything, he would have regained his vitality. You don't need to be so polite. Thank you. While she was speaking, Beigong Ningxuang, Beigong Tianhuan, and Beigong Zhangqing all moved to the side, unwilling to accept this bow. You don't need to be so polite. If we really want to talk about it, everyone can be considered to have quite a deep friendship. The forefather of the Heavenly Wood Divine Tree laughed. Then, he turned around to look at the stone coffin in the ancestral hall, his eyes sparkling with a strange light. This little girl is right. That kid has the grass of immortal power Upanishad origin. It's just a matter of time before he recovers his vitality. What they have done is just to stimulate the fuse. The Heavenly Wood Divine Tree Ancestor was also a member of the Beigong clan. Moreover, he was an extremely ancient expert. Although his words were suspicious of erasing the Four's contribution, it didn't cause any dissatisfaction from the Four. It was more like an elder was politely declining on behalf of the younger generation. Alright then, this Du won't be so polite with you. Please stay in my desolate country for a few more days. Let us show you some hospitality. Du Tingxian nodded and didn't say more. Then, together with Zhen Qingchun and the others, he led the four experts of the Beigong clan and the Fangji clan out of the Du family's ancestral hall. Although the four young men and the forefather of the Heavenly Wood Divine Tree had said that, everybody understood that if they hadn't taken action and Du Xiaofu only relied on the grass of immortal power Upanishad origin in his body, without any external force, no one knew how long it would take him to reach this step. If there had been a little mistake, no one knew what the final result would have been. Therefore, the gratitude they felt towards these people was not fake at all. After Du Tingshuan's group had left, the Du family's ancestral hall resumed its tranquility. Between the heavens and the earth, although the boundless and vast spiritual qi was much denser than usual, it was no longer as grand as before. Streams of energy flowed and spread to every part of the world. In the ancestral hall, the only difference was that the stone lid of the sarcophagus was open. Above it, a giant shadow of the grass of immortality floated up and down in the air, constantly emitting the aura of life. Large amounts of green light were like waves, constantly entering Du Xiaofu's body. I don't know how long it will take for Dad to wake up. Little Qilin. The little Qilin's tender voice sounded as it looked at Du Xiaofu in the stone coffin, its eyes filled with hope. It shouldn't be too long. Little Qilin. Du Xiaohuang said from the side, also full of hope. Let's go out first and continue to guard here. The moment Dad wakes up, we'll be able to see him. Little Qilin. Little Xingxing put Du Xiaolin on his shoulder and stretched out his hands, pulling Du Xiaohuang and Du Xiaoba. Together with Du Xiaoyao and Du Yunlong, they walked out of the Du family's ancestral hall. The door closed silently, and everything returned to tranquility. However, pieces of green light passed through the crack in the door, sprinkling on little Xingxing and the others. The 4 people of the Beigong clan had their strength greatly suppressed in this world, but they could still use the power of the heavenly saint realm. The huge waves they caused affected many living beings in the Kyushu realm of the 3 continents. The endless spiritual qi of the world was crazily plundered, alarming many experts. Fortunately, all of this didn't last for too long. From the beginning to the end, it was only 6 hours. However, 6 hours was enough for a lot of things to happen. This was especially so in the stone city of the barren country. Many residents had used this opportunity to improve their cultivation by leaps and bounds. Furthermore, cultivators who were originally on the verge of a breakthrough had stepped into a whole new realm in one fell swoop. Such a situation caused them to be wild with joy. At the same time, it was not difficult for many experts in other regions to discover that all these changes originated from the desolate country. For a moment, many people began to wonder if someone in the desolate country had broken through to the heavenly saint realm, causing such a huge change. The experts who had deep ties with the desolate country all set out, hurrying over. They wanted to hear the news as soon as possible. Very soon, the palace of the desolate country was packed with people. The golden-winged Great Ping clan, the demon realm, the Phoenix clan, the dragons, the humans of the ancient desolate continent, the Beast Alliance, the ancient heaven sect, the profound talisman sect, the Seiman sword sect, and many other forces in the Kyushu realm had all sent people over to inquire about the situation. When they heard Du Tingxian and the others say that Du Xiaofu might come back to life again, the various experts opened their mouths in shock, unable to close them for a long time. All the experts in the Kyushu realm of the 3 continents felt sorry for Du Xiaofu's fall. At the same time, they were endlessly grateful to the young man. If it weren't for him, the great calamity of the devil religion would not have ended like this. Even if Jiangchen had appeared at the end and killed the demon god, it was because Du Xiaofu had exhausted himself to the extreme and his strength had been greatly reduced. Otherwise, it would have been difficult to determine who would emerge victorious. At this moment, when they heard that Du Xiaofu might come back to life, their hearts were filled with incomparable excitement. In fact, after the great calamity had ended, many experts who had reached the consummate saint realm were preparing to leave this realm and go to a wider world to temper themselves. However, when they saw that the incomparably powerful desolate country had not made any moves, they were not in a hurry. After the experts of the 9 great clans had arrived, they had caused quite a stir. Therefore, they wanted to see if there would be more experts from the upper realm coming. As for when my grandson will wake up, I'm afraid it's hard to say. However, once he's completely recovered, he'll definitely make a trip to the outside world. Everyone, there's no need to be anxious for the time being. Since we're all creatures of this realm, we must unite as one. When the time comes, we'll go to the 33 heavens and make a name for ourselves. Yes. Let's go, said Jalobatian of the golden-winged great rocks, his entire body brimming with an inexplicably domineering aura. Currently, his strength had reached the consummate saint realm, and he wasn't far from the sky sage realm. Presumably, as long as he went to the 33 heavens and lost the suppression of the world's energy, coupled with the rich spiritual energy of heaven and earth in the greater world, it wouldn't take too long for him to break through. Senior, you're right. The ancient heaven sex Gu Qingyang nodded. When he heard that Du Xiaofu might come back to life, his aged face seemed to instantly become 20 years younger, and he couldn't help but smile. He looked at everyone in the hall and said, "We have some understanding of the 33 heavens situation. It's not a simple place, it's filled with experts. I've heard that sage realm cultivators like us are everywhere, and everywhere is fraught with danger. Therefore, when we go to the outside world, we must unite as one. Only then will we not be bullied by the forces of the greater world. Of course. However, there's no need to be anxious about this matter." Zhen Qingchun agreed, then suddenly changed the topic. "In truth, I've always been curious about Jiangqin's origins. Although the great calamity has passed for so long, this matter still leaves me puzzled." "Of course." As he spoke, he turned his gaze to the 4 young experts of the Beigong clan and the Skywood Divine Tree ancestor. Du Tingxian had politely urged them to stay, so they'd remained in the desolate country for the past few days. Otherwise, they'd already prepared to return to bright jade complete heaven. When the experts of the 3 continents and Kyushu realm arrived and learned of their identities, they treated them with great respect. Although the Beigong clan's 4 young experts looked incomparably young, they'd probably cultivated for much longer than experts like Jialo Jueyu. In fact, Jialo Jueyu, Sima Taxing, and the others might not even be as old as them. Moreover, their strength was already there for all to see. They were experts, and experts with whom they were friends, so of course they'd be respected. "Senior, do you know anything about zombies?" "Yes." When Zhen Qingchun mentioned it, many people turned their gazes to the Skywood Divine Tree ancestor and the others. They were knowledgeable and experienced in the outside world, so perhaps they knew something about zombies. Zhen Qingchun wasn't the only one who was puzzled. Many people were puzzled as well. Jiangqin's strength was too incomprehensible. Many people had heard what he'd said to the demon god during their battle, "Perhaps no one else in this world can kill you, but I can." Yes. His words were filled with extreme self-confidence. In fact, he'd really done it. Even Du Xiaofu hadn't been able to kill the demon god by burning his origin laws. In the end, his soul had been devoured. It was unknown where he'd gotten his confidence from. Perhaps all of this had to do with his mysterious origins. Zombies are born from the bodies of living creatures after they die. They develop intelligence of their own, and their memories from when they were alive are obliterated. They can be considered a completely new life form. These life forms only have intelligence, but no soul, so they're filled with the aura of death. They're dead to begin with, so there's no such thing as death. That's why they've been abandoned by heaven and earth, unable to enter the cycle of reincarnation. They've transcended heaven and earth and are free to roam the world. Yes. The Skywood Divine Tree ancestor paced around the hall with his hands behind his back, pondering as he spoke. There were no weaklings present. They'd long since heard similar things, but the Skywood ancestors' words still contained a great deal of new information. They grasped the key points. Chapter 2680. Zombies are inanimate objects. They have intelligence but no soul. The greatest difference between them and living beings is that they can't enter the cycle of reincarnation. Many people fell silent. They couldn't help but feel shocked. Everyone present knew that after many powerful creatures died, their bodies would not decay, and it would not be difficult for them to retain a trace of their soul to continue fighting. However, it was somewhat inconceivable for them to be able to develop intelligence on their own. No wonder Jiangchen didn't know who he was. So he was reborn and didn't have the memories of his previous life. Zhen Qingchun frowned. The desolate nation had a deep friendship with Jiangchen, so he knew a bit about him. However, because Jiangchen had always appeared and disappeared like a ghost and his whereabouts were unknown, he didn't know much about him. But now that he thought about it, since Jiangchen had said those words to the demon god, it was very likely that he'd remembered something from the past. Perhaps he truly knew who he was. When Jiangchen was alive, he must have been an all-powerful figure. His strength was incomparably terrifying. He should have been countless times stronger than I was at my peak. I really don't know how someone like that could have fallen in this world. Sigh. The Skywood Divine Tree's ancestor sighed. Although it was just a guess, he seemed to have some confidence. The others didn't react much, but the 4 youths from the Beigong clan couldn't help but tremble. Others might not know the Skywood Divine Tree's cultivation base at its peak, but they did. In the 33 heavens or other places, such a powerhouse was absolutely an extremely famous figure. Thus, when the Skywood Divine Tree sighed, the 4 youths couldn't help but feel incomparably shocked. They were also very curious about Jiangchen. Jiangchen swallowed the demon god's soul. If he could refine it, his strength would have reached an even more terrifying level. Sigh. He might have entered the 33 heavens, Du Tingxian said, a strange look in his eyes. Perhaps he also went to the 33 heavens. Perhaps we'll have a chance to meet again in the future. When the time comes, we can ask him if he's recovered his memories. Sigh. Zhen Qingchun took over the conversation and said in a low voice. That shouldn't be possible. He was reborn, and his original spirit had long been obliterated. If he wanted to regain his memories, he would have to find a part of his spirit that had dissipated. However, the world had its own order. After a living being died, they would enter the cycle of reincarnation and be reincarnated. Everything would start anew. In other words, a new life would be born. It had nothing to do with the past. The Skywood Divine Tree's ancestor said after some thought. Senior, what if he was originally a meditative forgetfulness realm expert? Beigong Yingrua stood up from her seat and said with a burning gaze. Not to mention the people from the desolate country, even the Heavenly Wood Divine Tree ancestor's body couldn't help but slightly tremble after hearing this. Before Fu Yibai and the other 4 left, they had already told the experts of the desolate country about the 33 heavens. In that vast and boundless world, the strength possessed by cultivators was divided into 9 major realms. They were, enlightened origin, profound insight, void returning, soul seizing, truth severing, immortal, meditative, path bearing, and formless. The lowest enlightened origin realm was equivalent to a sovereign realm expert in this world. In countless other small worlds, living beings in this realm could break through the void and enter the 33 heavens. Following that, the profound insight and void returning realms were equivalent to the domain realm and saint realm cultivators below the sky saint realm. As for the sky saint realm, it was divided into separate realms in the 33 heavens, called the soul seizing realm. If the living beings of this world wanted to enter the 33 heavens, they needed to be at the great circle of the saint realm at the very least, which was the void returning realm. All the experts in the outside world knew that of the 9 realms, the path-bearing and formless realms only existed in legends. It was impossible to know if anyone could reach those realms. In other words, the strongest living beings could see were those in the meditative realm. However, such a person was already considered the strongest when the latter 2 realms were only legends. However, such experts were rarely seen in 10,000 years. Because of their realms, not many people would easily appear in the world. However, Du Tingxian, Zhen Qingchun and the others didn't know the exact reason. That was because Fu Yibai's group of 5 didn't tell them. They only knew that they would know everything once their cultivation reached a certain level. Coming into contact with some things too early wouldn't bring about any benefits, and might even be counterproductive. At this time, hearing Bei Gongyingrua mention it, Zhen Qingchun couldn't restrain his curiosity. He couldn't help but ask the Skywood Divine Tree Ancestor, Senior, what kind of realm is the meditative realm? Yes. But just as he asked, the Skywood Divine Tree Ancestor's answer made Zhen Qingchun completely give up. His words were exactly the same as Fuibai's, when the time comes to know, you will naturally know. There is no need to ask now. You only need to know that it is an extremely vast and dangerous realm. If you succeed in taking the first step, you will be able to attain the Tao-bearing realm. However, those who can succeed are as rare as phoenix feathers and qilin horns in all the worlds. As the Skywood Divine Tree Ancestor spoke, he looked at Bei Gongyingrua and continued, your conjecture is not without reason. However, Jiangchen's body has only gained sentience, not broken through the meditative realm. Otherwise, how could he have lost his past memories? Clearly, his soul has already been obliterated. Otherwise, his body wouldn't possess such a dense aura of death. Bei Gongyingrua gently nodded, expressing her understanding. What the Skywood Divine Tree Ancestor meant was that if Jiangchen had broken through the meditative realm and lost his memories, he wouldn't have possessed such a boundless aura of death. But because his body was too powerful, immortal and indestructible, it gradually gave birth to a new life. It was equivalent to severing his past. If Jiangchen's soul did not disperse and was found again, it was indeed possible for him to learn about the past. However, the possibility of this was very small. The original body was already dead, and a soul separated from the original body would become weaker and weaker after countless years of erosion. In the end, it would be devoured by the 6 paths of reincarnation. No matter how powerful an existence was, they would not be able to escape this calamity. After this explanation, the people from the desolate country and the experts from the 3 continents, Kyushu, and the other regions all understood. In truth, Du Tingxian, Ouyang Shuang, Yi Wuming, and the others were quite curious about the existence of the 6 paths of reincarnation. However, they also knew that even if they asked, the Skywood Divine Tree Ancestor would definitely not tell them, just like Fuibai's group of 5. As a result, no matter how many doubts they had, they could only suppress them all. The beings of our world need to be at the consummate sainthood at the very least to enter the 33 heavens. In other words, they've directly skipped the enlightened origin and profound insight realms. Even in the returnance realm, they're peak experts. Jello-Batian couldn't help but ask as he looked at the Skywood Divine Tree Ancestor and the 4 youths of the Beigong clan. He was currently at the consummate sainthood, so he wanted to know what level he would reach after entering the 33 heavens. Of course. In fact, it wasn't entirely a bad thing that this world was suppressed by the power of heaven and earth. After cultivating in such an environment for many years, all beings would suddenly lose their huge shackles after going to the outside world. Their foundations would be firm, and their breakthroughs would be like a hot knife through butter. It could be said that it was harder than ascending to the heavens for a consummate sainthood in this world to break through to the sky sainthood. However, once they entered the 33 heavens, if their opportunities and comprehension were sufficient, at least 2 or 3 out of 10 people would be able to smoothly enter the seizing divinity realm. Such a powerhouse would definitely be a core powerhouse in the various major forces. The Skywood Divine Tree Ancestor smiled and looked at Jello-Batian. Whoosh! The moment the Skywood Divine Tree Ancestor's words came out, the hall immediately went into an uproar. The information contained within was truly unbelievable. Everyone was very clear that the gap between the sky sainthood and the consummate sainthood was like a heavenly chasm. For example, the ancient desolate continent's ancient emperor of the human race, the Beast Alliance's ancient ancestor of the divine bird clan, and many others had all been at consummate sainthood for many years, unable to enter the sky sainthood for their entire lives. The ancient emperor of the human race and the ancient ancestor of the divine bird clan had grinded until the end of their lives. In the end, they had faked their deaths in order to remove the tumors in their respective factions, wanting to leave behind peace for their descendants after their deaths. However, it was only later that the heavenly Tao tomb disappeared and the suppression of heaven and earth was completely lifted that they were able to leave this world. I still have a chance to see Big Sister. Within the crowd, Du Shaoqing was already silently shedding tears. The ancient ancestor of the divine bird clan was her sister. Before she had left, she was already nearing the end of her life. Originally, she had thought that after she and the ancient emperor of the human race left this world, everything would come to an end, a true parting of life and death. But now, after hearing the Skywood divine tree ancestor's words, she couldn't help but feel a strong sense of hope. If her sister was still alive, they would naturally have a chance to meet again. At that time, she would definitely be a Sky Saint powerhouse, which was also the seizing divinity realm. It wasn't just Du Shaoqing, but the previous ancient emperor of the human race's sacred temple was also extremely excited. To be able to stand out among the countless heroes of the human race, the ancient emperor's cultivation talent naturally didn't need to be mentioned. Since that was the case, perhaps there really would be a chance for them to meet again. The ancient emperor had made too many contributions to the human race. There was no better news than that he could continue to live. After the burial deathlands opened, the suppression of heaven and earth disappeared. It hasn't been too long since that happened. In this world, many beings are still rapidly advancing. It won't be long before more and more perfect Saint Realm experts appear in this world. At that time, there will definitely be a world for us in the 33 heavens. Among the crowd, Mu Jianchen of the Saman Sword Sect's eyes flashed with resplendent brilliance. Currently, he was also a perfect Saint Realm expert, but it was still far from breaking through to the Sky Saint Realm. However, he was very confident that as long as he went to the 33 heavens, he would definitely be able to make a breakthrough early with the help of the unique conditions there. Among the other beings in this world, there was no lack of outstanding talents. Once they went to the outside world, they would definitely be able to form a powerful force. That's true, but the great powers and inheritances that have experienced the test of time in the outside world aren't easy to deal with. Every world in the 33 heavens is much, much more vast than this world. To truly establish a foothold there and stand at the peak, I'm afraid it will take many years. Jielo Jueyu said softly. He wasn't pouring cold water on Mu Jianchen, but was analyzing everything objectively. Regardless of the most powerful meditative, carrier, and formless realms, there were still the truth-severing and immortal realms above the void-returning and seizing divinity realms. Presumably, there was a natural chasm between each realm, and it definitely wasn't easy to cross it. The great powers and inheritances of the upper realms had accumulated for countless years to establish an unshakable foundation and stand at the peak. If the beings of this world wanted to establish a foothold in the 33 heavens, they would have a long way to go. That's right. Among those great powers and inheritances, there are countless people with extraordinary talents. It's not like there aren't any as freakish as that brat. The suppressive force of this world can indeed allow you to forge a better foundation and stabilize your cultivation, allowing you to accumulate enough strength. However, it also restricts your progress. Among your peers, there are far too many who surpass you in cultivation. The heavenly wood divine tree's ancestor smiled again. Everyone could tell that the freakish brat he was talking about was Du Shaofu. In this world, only his cultivation speed could be called freakish. They hadn't expected that such a terrifying young expert would exist in the 33 heavens. They couldn't help but sigh. Even though many of the people present could be considered as absolute young powerhouses in this world, when placed in the 33 heavens, it seemed that they would still face great competition. To the side, Ouyang Shuang, Dongli Qingqing, and the others couldn't help but look at Beigong Yingrua, Beigong Ningxuang, Beigong Tianhuan, and Beigong Zhangqing. They wanted to know just what kind of cultivation realm these four incomparably young experts had reached. Through this, they could compare themselves to them and measure the gap between them. Following their gazes, the other experts of the three continents, Kyushu, and other realms couldn't help but look at them, hoping to hear a definite answer. This scene stunned the Skywood Divine Tree's ancestor and the four young experts. Then, the Skywood Divine Tree ancestor laughed and pointed at the four. The corner of his mouth curled up. These little fellows should be considered the strongest of the younger generation in the Beigong clan. Their realms, oh, aren't bad. Great Circle of the Seizing Divinity Realm. I'm afraid they're not too far from the Truth-Severing Realm. They should have cultivated for 300 years. This, the experts of the three continents, Kyushu, and other realms were all shocked. These four young people were already at the Great Circle of the Seizing Divinity Realm. They weren't much inferior to Du Xiaofu when he was receiving the worship of the world and receiving the imperial aura. After fusing with the law of lightning, Du Xiaofu had already surpassed the Sky Saint realm and reached the Truth-Severing realm. But according to the Skywood Divine Tree ancestor, these four had only cultivated for 300 years, yet they had already reached such a terrifying realm. How could they not be shocked? It had to be known that Du Xiaofu had also cultivated for many years in the unsuppressed space of the Black Palace. If they really counted, Du Xiaofu's cultivation time wasn't much less than theirs. In an instant, the majority of the young people present felt the pressure double. In comparison, the gap was a bit too great. Senior, under everyone's shocked gazes, Beigong Yingrua's face quickly turned red. With a bitter smile, she said embarrassedly, "We've been cultivating for a longer time than them. In addition to the uniqueness of our world, our cultivation speed is naturally much faster. But even so, compared to the Rock Emperor, it's still too." Ha 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 ha, the Skywood Divine Tree ancestor laughed again and continued, "I said that brat is a freak and can't be compared to him. But what you said is also the truth. Our realm is too special. If we compare like this, it's a bit bullying." Sigh. Seeing the Skywood Divine Tree's ancestor sigh, the experts of the three continents and 9 provinces looked at each other in confusion. "Senior, is there something special about the luminous jade complete heavens?" Sigh. Dongli Qingqing's red lips parted slightly as she asked. Ever since she learned that the Skywood Divine Tree ancestor came from the upper realms Beigong clan, she was filled with longing for that mystical place. And this time, the ancestor had clearly said that he would take her with him. Now that he mentioned it, she couldn't help but ask. "Of course it's not the luminous jade complete heavens." Sigh. The Skywood Divine Tree ancestor's expression became serious as he said this, causing everyone to be taken aback. From what the experts from the Nong family, Mo family, and the other clans had said, wasn't the Beigong clan from the luminous jade complete heavens? How could it not be? You'll naturally know when the time comes. On this trip to the upper realm, if you're lucky enough, you'll also have the opportunity to cultivate in that realm. It will be extremely beneficial to you. Yes. The Skywood Divine Tree ancestor smiled mysteriously as he spoke to Dongli Qingqing. Then he continued, "Speaking of which, although the entire 33 heavens is a bit weaker than our realm, the difference isn't by much. Every realm in the 33 heavens is also an extraordinary place. You can also cultivate to the pinnacle there." Yes. Everyone was silent as they slowly digested the Skywood ancestor's words. Everyone's understanding of the situation in the 33 heavens became a bit clearer, but at the same time, even more doubts rose in their hearts. Suddenly, Du Tingxian asked, "Senior, what are the 2 sovereigns, the Lord of the 3,000 major realms and the Dragon God?" Yes. As soon as these words came out, everyone's ears immediately perked up. To all the living beings in this world, the names of these 2 supreme powerhouses were like thunder in their ears. The demon god had been chased to this realm by them, and the devil religion's calamity had their shadows in it. I can't say. Yes. The Skywood Divine Tree ancestor's face stiffened as he shook his head. Chapter 2681. The Skywood Divine Tree's old ancestor kept them in suspense. He didn't say anything about the cultivation bases of the 3,000 world masters and the dragon god. Although everyone was disappointed, they could tell from his expression that the Heavenly Wood Divine Tree ancestor was well aware of their cultivation levels. The experts from the 3 continents, Kyushu Domain, the Desolate Country, and the 4 youths from the Baigong family chatted in the main hall for a long time. Only at midnight did everyone finally disperse. Afterwards, some people who were very close to Du Xiaofu followed Du Tingxian and Zhen Qingchun to the Du family's ancestral hall to take a look. The powerful fluctuations of vitality emitted from the room shocked everyone, but at the same time, they were also incomparably excited. Du Xiaofu was not only their family and friend, but after the battle with the demon god, he had also become the rock emperor of all living beings in this world. The vast majority of living beings were grieving over his death. Jialo Batian, Jialo Maoyuo, Zishuan, Mu Jianchen, and the others were also incomparably heartbroken. Now that they knew there was a chance for him to come back to life, how could they not be excited? If this news were to spread to the outside world, all living beings would probably be very happy. After Baigong Yingrua and the others arrived, the 5 great families bid farewell to Du Tingxian and left. If they had known that they would be able to find out about this matter immediately by staying, they would probably have thickened their skin and stayed to take a look. After many experts learned of the desolate country's situation, they did not stay for long and left the country one after another. No one knew how long it would take for Du Xiaofu to finally awaken. The various great powers needed people to stand guard, and they could not keep guarding here forever. Moreover, Du Tingxian had already promised that the desolate country would definitely send someone to inform them the moment Du Xiaofu woke up. This also made everyone feel more at ease when they left. Only Zi Xian, Sima Muhan, Su Muxin, Little Tiger Du Xiaoqing and a few others remained in the desolate country and did not return to their tribes. As for Dongli Qingqing, she had wanted to do the same thing as these people and wait for Du Xiaofu to wake up. However, under the persuasion of Du Tingxian, Han Aodong, and the others, he reluctantly followed the Skywood Divine Tree ancestor, the 4 youths of the Baigong clan, as well as Dongli Ruoyun and a few other experts to the extreme Jade Complete Heaven, leaving this world. Over there, they would be able to obtain even greater opportunities. It wouldn't be long before their respective strengths would be able to take another step forward. Dad, wake up quickly. Outside the Du family's ancestral shrine, the little Qilin turned its head to look at the door behind it and called out immaturely. The other experts who had come to visit had already left, leaving behind little Xingxing, Du Yunlong, Du Xiaoyao, and the others. As Du Xiaofu spoke, their gazes were also eager. They hoped that Du Xiaofu would be able to push open the door and stand before them as soon as possible. Within the ancestral shrine, the huge figure of the grass of immortality released an azure light, completely enveloping Du Xiaofu's body within the stone coffin. Powerful life force fluctuations emanated from his body and continuously poured into his body. In a place where no one could see, Du Xiaofu's body had already recovered its structure in his mind. However, the Mud Pill Palace was empty. There was no soul, let alone a soul. Swish, suddenly, a tiny bolt of lightning exploded. It seemed abnormally abrupt in the empty Mud Pill Palace. Although the lightning was tiny, it was resplendent, illuminating the entire space in his mind. The moment this bolt of lightning appeared, another 2 bolts of lightning flashed and shuttled back and forth in the Mud Pill Palace. Swish. 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 Soon, after the 2 bolts of lightning, another 4 bolts of lightning flashed and appeared. Then, there were 8, 16, 32, 64, more and more tiny bolts of lightning appeared in Du Xiaofu's mind, blooming with a domineering and piercingly cold light. These bolts of lightning grew exponentially. After a short while, they formed countless tiny bolts of lightning, wreaking havoc. Countless lights flickered and flickered, as if the heavens' might was spreading and boiling. The densely packed bolts of lightning quickly formed a ball of lightning, with a terrifying aura brewing. However, all of this did not end there. After the boiling lightning filled up Du Xiaofu's Naiwen palace, the number of young thunderbolts did not stop. Instead, it continued to increase at a crazy rate. The overflowing lightning power broke through the restrictions of the Mud Pill Palace and quickly spread to the rest of Du Xiaofu's body. It passed through the 8 extraordinary meridians, through the flesh and bones, through every inch of skin, and finally gathered in his dantian. Boom! Crack! A muffled thunderclap exploded, causing the shadow of the grass of immortality above the sarcophagus to sway a few times. The vast aura of life was also greatly shaken, as if it was about to collapse entirely. The people who were sitting cross-legged outside the ancestral shrine jumped 3 feet into the air at the same time. Their bodies bounced up from the ground, and they quickly pushed open the door behind them and rushed in. It's formed by the power of thunder and lightning. This is the strongest law that Xiaofu has mastered. When Du Yunlong entered the ancestral shrine, he immediately discovered this. He, Little Xingxing, Du Xiaoyao, Du Xiaohuang, and the others all surrounded the sarcophagus within 20 feet of it. Their eyes were filled with extreme joy. Boss has mastered the law of thunder and lightning. This thunder and lightning cannot be born out of thin air. There must be a source. Du Xiaoyao also spoke excitedly, but she seemed to be somewhat rational as she spoke of some of the fundamental reasons. Du Xiaofu's life force had already disappeared, and his law origin had been burned out. Even if the profound mysteries of the grass of immortality in his body caused his body to be rejuvenated, with his own strength, it was impossible for him to trigger the power of thunder and lightning out of thin air. Just as Du Yunlong and Du Xiaoyao finished speaking, Du Tingxian, Zhen Qingchun, Ouyang Shuang, Sima Muhan, and the others also sensed the fluctuations of the power of thunder and quickly rushed over. They all surrounded the sarcophagus and quietly watched. There is indeed an external force. This sarcophagus has an extraordinary origin. It must be something left behind by the Du family's ancestor. Little Xingxing's eyes shone with a golden light as he spoke softly. Our ancestor surpassed the Sky Saint realm with the law of thunder and lightning, and merged with the law of heaven. It is not difficult for him to leave a trace of the power of thunder and lightning in this sarcophagus. With the power of thunder and lightning, I can borrow the powerful life force in my father's body to once again stimulate the might of thunder and lightning. Then, I can reconstruct the thunder martial veins and even draw out the origin of the laws. This is no longer impossible. Du Xiaojing, Yi Piaoling, Qin Guyu, and the others all looked at each other. They all understood what Little Xingxing meant. When Du Xiaofu was first placed in the sarcophagus, only his head was left. After a long time, when the sarcophagus was opened again, his body had already been completely reconstructed. All of this was probably left behind by the Du family's ancestor in the early years. Although there was still no life force in Du Xiaofu's body after such a transformation, the grass of immortality contained in his body, and with the activation of the Beigong family, it was directly revived. With the support of this powerful life force and a trace of the power of thunder and lightning, Du Xiaofu's thunder martial vein was reconstructed. In this way, it would be a matter of course for him to create a brand new origin of laws. It could be said that the current Du Xiaofu was not much different from before except that his divine soul had not been restored. When his thunder martial vein was completely reconstructed and his body was tempered, if he could stand up and fight, he would still be a Sky Saint realm powerhouse. If the law of thunder and lightning was perfected again, he would definitely be able to surpass the Sky Saint realm. In the 33 heavens, it would be the God-seizing realm. I just don't know how my brother's divine soul can be restored. Du Xiaojing frowned slightly, and there was a hint of worry in her eyes. The revival of life, the reconstruction of martial veins, and the formation of law origin was nothing. The most important thing was how Du Xiaofu's divine soul could be reconstructed. They had originally held high hopes that after Du Xiaofu's life force was restored, he would quickly awaken. But now, no one dared to think that way. After the Skywood Divine Tree's ancestors' words, they knew of the existence of the 6 paths of reincarnation. After all living beings died, their souls would fall into the cycle of reincarnation. No one could reverse it. It was the most noble order of the world. Du Xiaofu's divine soul had long since dissipated along with the burning of his origin spirit during his battle with the demon god. If there were no accidents, he would have most likely fallen into the cycle of reincarnation long ago. If that was the case, then there was no hope. Even if his body was restored to its strongest state, it would only be a soulless shell. Unless he was like Jiangchen, whose body would develop intelligence and become a zombie countless years later and be reborn. But that would no longer be Du Xiaofu. It's a pity that the Skywood Divine Tree's ancestor has already left. Otherwise, with his knowledge, he would have been able to dispel some of our doubts, Ouyang Shuang said softly. Ouyang Shuang said softly. The people present had no way to discuss these issues, nor did they know what to do. Du Xiaofu had already died more than once, but the situation this time was completely different from the previous 2 times. The first time he had died, his body's vitality had been completely destroyed. Through Qi Yeshi's methods and a series of strange events, his vitality had been restored and he had been revived. That time, his soul hadn't dissipated. It could be said that after his death, a portion of his divine soul's power remained in his mind. As for the second time, a supreme existence like the Lord of the 3,000 sectors had acted to save Du Xiaofu's life. Otherwise, even 100 lives wouldn't have been enough for him to survive the demon god's attack. But this time, it was different. In the battle with the god fiend, he burned the power of his primordial spirit and the origin of laws. It could be said that his divine soul was truly destroyed. Otherwise, even if there was only a sliver of his origin spirit left, with everyone's methods, they could have stabilized it and slowly strengthened it. As such, this was the source of the desolate country's worries. Without a divine soul, everything was just empty talk. I believe there shouldn't be any problems. At this moment, Du Xiaoyao spoke again. The Heavenly Wood Divine Tree ancestor didn't mention this to us, so it's impossible that he hasn't thought about it. He must be confident. Hearing this, everyone couldn't help but nod in agreement. With the Heavenly Wood Divine Tree ancestor's experience, it was impossible for him to miss this point. If this really was a hidden danger, he would have mentioned it long ago. Therefore, in his heart, he should also have a card up his sleeve. Uncle Little Yao is right. Otherwise, the 4 experts of the Beigong clan coming here would have been meaningless, Little Star said. She looked at Du Xiaofu in the sarcophagus, her eyes rippling with extraordinary splendor. The 4 experts of the Beigong clan said they were entrusted by someone to help Xiaofu. Although they weren't willing to reveal who it was, we all have an idea. With those 2's methods, it's even more impossible for them not to have considered this. Perhaps they've already left behind some sort of method. Du Tingxian glanced at Little Star and said. His words caused the little girl's expression to become even more excited. No one present was a fool. Of course, they could guess the identity of the person entrusted to the Beigong clan. It could be said that in the 33 heavens, the only ones who had a deep connection with Du Xiaofu were the overlords of the 3,000 great worlds and the dragon god. Those were 2 supreme experts. Although the Heavenly Wood Divine Tree ancestor was also unwilling to reveal their realms, everyone could still guess for themselves. What was a supreme expert? A meditative realm? Tao-bearing realm? Or the imageless realm? The Tao-bearing realm and the imageless realm only existed in legends. That wasn't good. At the very least, it was the meditative realm. The abilities possessed by those realms were definitely not something that the people of the desolate country could guess. Everyone, don't be anxious. I believe that those 2 existences must have made arrangements. There's no need for us to worry here. Sacred Array Child Jin Qingchun smiled and said to the people around him. That's right. Xiaofu is a worthy person. Heaven helps him. He'll definitely be fine. Dr. Wuming nodded his head repeatedly as he spoke. Actually, after hearing what Du Xiaoyao, Little Xingxing, and Du Tingxian said one after another, everyone had already heaved a sigh of relief in their hearts. The overlords of the 3,000 great worlds and the dragon god must have already thought of this matter. Since he had entrusted the Beigong clan to come here, how could he and the rest of them be anxious? In Jin Qingchuan's words, they were worrying for nothing. Let's go first. Before this kid wakes up, we have to raise our cultivation. At the very least, when we go to the 33 heavens, we'll be able to help a little when this kid is causing trouble. The corners of Du Tingxuan's mouth curled up as he chuckled. Hearing this, the rest of the people present also laughed at the same time. Afterwards, everyone dispersed and went to find a place to cultivate. Just like before, only Little Xingxing and a few half-step heavenly saints remained. Chapter 2682. After the crowd left, the door of the Du family ancestral hall was closed again. Chi, inside the stone coffin, arcs of lightning wreaked havoc on Du Xiaofu's body, flashing with terrifying majesty and light. Above his body, the green grass of immortality was no longer affected by the power of thunder and lightning. Instead, it became increasingly bright and sparkling, delicate and glistening, releasing a hazy brilliance. Vast amounts of life force were still pouring into Du Xiaofu's body in large amounts. As the lightning on Du Xiaofu's body continued to gather, there were also surging electric lights crazily flowing in his body. The tiny electric lights intertwined with each other, condensing into a thick bolt of lightning. It shuttled rapidly through Du Xiaofu's meridians, washing his body over and over again. Gradually, the body that had been recondensed slowly became robust. After being tempered by the power of thunder and lightning, his muscles and bones had become abnormally tough. After the thick bolt of lightning had passed through Du Xiaofu's body for 108 cycles, it finally lay dormant. The light also slowly dissipated, and it quietly lay dormant. If Du Xiaofu had consciousness at this moment, he only needed to activate it slightly, and the dormant lightning would immediately erupt with an incomparably terrifying power. This was the reconstructed thunder martial vein. As time passed, on the second day, everything slowly calmed down. In the ancestral hall of the Du family, all the lightning in the stone coffin disappeared, and all of them returned from the surface of Du Xiaofu's body into his body. Furthermore, the grass of immortality's silhouette finally dimmed and dissipated from the void. The endless life force that was emitted was only left with a hazy aftershock, but it also quickly spread between heaven and earth. Only in Du Xiaofu's mind, balls of lightning were still flashing, releasing blazing light. It could be said that Du Xiaofu's current physical body had reached his peak state. As long as he woke up, all of his cultivation could be directly used as before. However, his soul had not returned, and what was lying in the stone coffin was only a body without consciousness. With such a body, without the guidance of a soul, no matter how powerful it was, it would not be able to unleash its full potential. The other experts of the desolate country were previously worried about this. However, Zhen Qingchun said it well, they were just worried for nothing. With the Lord of the 3,000 vast worlds and the Dragon God watching over everything, there should not be any mistakes. In fact, everything was as they had expected. This was because Du Xiaofu's consciousness. It was still there, it was just that, the way it existed, the way it did it. Du Tingxian, Zhen Qingchun, Du Xiaoyao, Little Xingxing, and the others were not wrong. Du Xiaofu's soul had indeed dissipated a long time ago. In a situation where he had burned his origin source of laws and the power of his soul to fight against the demon god, including his consciousness, there was no way he could have survived. However, no one knew that in a special space, there was still a weak consciousness that was recovering, awakening, and returning. Buzz buzz buzz. In the strange space, this weak consciousness emitted extremely subtle waves, and it was many times weaker than an ant crawling on the ground. This consciousness had always been in a muddle-headed state. It did not even have the slightest idea of who it was, what it was, where it came from, or where it was going. It could not sense its own body, so it could not know what kind of existence it was. In the little consciousness it had, the only thing it could feel was that it was constantly spinning. Swoosh! Suddenly, a faint light shot over and shone on the consciousness. However, it was like a scorching sun, causing it to feel a stinging pain. It hurts, close your eyes. This consciousness emitted little waves, expressing the feelings it had at this moment. After the pain was felt, it subconsciously wanted to close its eyes, but it realized that it did not seem to have eyes at all. What are eyes? It gradually adapted to the illumination of the strong light, and could not help but have new questions. Then, more questions appeared one by one. Why can't I move? Where's my body? What is my body? What am I? Where is this? Who am I? More and more questions gathered, and on this weak wisp of consciousness, subtle fluctuations were constantly occurring. Ah, my head hurts. Under the countless doubts, this wisp of consciousness was about to explode. With its small size, it was not enough to withstand this infinitely large stream of consciousness. At any time, it could be shattered by the accumulated doubts and disappear between heaven and earth. Countless questions, endless perplexity, and endless pain. However, just as it was about to reach its limit, a wave of warmth suddenly flowed over, like a clear spring flowing into its heart, constantly nourishing this weak consciousness, causing it to slowly grow stronger. Immediately after, a domineering figure walked out from the void around it. He stood beside the weak consciousness like a god between the heavens and the earth. Descendant of my Du family, it's time to wake up. The domineering man spoke softly, an indescribable majesty exuding from between his brows. His tall and imposing figure stood there, as if this entire space existed because of him. Descendant of the Du family? What is a descendant of the Du family? That weak consciousness was once again confused, but this time, because of the endless warmth enveloping it no longer felt unbearable because of this thought. On the contrary, it gradually adapted and began to ponder this profound question. As it continued to think, this strand of consciousness also slowly remembered many things. I am a descendant of the Du family. Yes, I am Du Xiaofu. Didn't I already die together with the demon god? I'm actually still alive. Where is this place? Could this be the underworld's reincarnation? Finally, it knew his identity and quickly recalled everything. He was Du Xiaofu, and in order to stop the demon god from killing during the great calamity of the devil religion, he had burned his origin of laws and the power of his origin spirit to fight with the demon god. In the end, he knew that the demon god had exhausted all of his vitality, and he could only be reduced to ashes without any chance of survival. However, for his family, loved ones, friends, and people to live peacefully, he was willing to die. However, why did he appear in such a space at this time, and why was there someone talking to him? Thinking of this, Du Xiaofu could not help but look ahead. Over there, a tall and burly middle-aged man was standing there quietly, like a mighty god. His body was imprinted in the void, as if he existed with heaven and earth. Seeing such a figure, Du Xiaofu could not help but open his mouth. After a long while, he released a wave of spirit, ancestor. That's right, the tall and imposing figure that merged with heaven and earth was the ancestor of the Du family who had once merged with the heavenly Tao of a world. You're finally awake. The ancestor took a slight step forward. On his angular face, a pair of bright eyes looked at Du Xiaofu, and there was a hint of affection hidden in his majesty. The descendant of the Du family greets the ancestor. When Du Xiaofu saw this, he was about to kneel on the ground and pay respects to the ancestor. However, he suddenly realized that he did not have a body at all, and only a consciousness remained. This, he could not pay respects, and Du Xiaofu was stunned for a long time. He was still alive, but his body was gone. Moreover, he could clearly feel that what he had now was not the state of a primordial spirit at all, but only a trace of a remnant spirit. In this way, it was not much different from being dead. Little fellow, there's no need to pay respects. Your current state is not good. Recover as soon as possible. Many people are still waiting for you outside. The ancestor said to Du Xiaofu kindly with a smile on his face. Ancestor, this junior is already dead, how could, Du Xiaofu asked in bewilderment. He had clearly turned into ashes, so how could there be a trace of consciousness left behind at this time? I've learned about what you've been through from your soul. You are indeed dead, but there is still hope for you to be resurrected. The ancestor looked at Du Xiaofu and said softly. Seeing that Du Xiaofu did not speak, he continued, since you want to know, then I'll tell you. This space is the place you came to before, which is also the place where I was buried back then. Ancestor's place of burial, could it be, the tomb of the heavenly Tao? Du Xiaofu immediately understood. The place where the ancestor was buried was the deepest part of the ancient barren continent's burial ground. Later on, he had returned to the upper reaches of the river of time and witnessed everything that happened in the ancient times. It was also at that time that he learned of the ancestor's identity and the origin of the Du family's lightning vein. Oh, the tomb of the heavenly Tao, this name is somewhat appropriate. The ancestor nodded and smiled. You came here before and saw the illusion I left behind. It made you experience the great calamity of the devil religion, as if you experienced it yourself. So it was just an illusion. Was it not the power of time? Du Xiaofu was confused. His experience back then was as if he had returned to the ancient times. Everything was so real, and it did not seem like an illusion at all. He had always thought that he had truly returned to the past and experienced all the killing and resistance. You are correct. I have merged with the heavenly Tao of this world, so I can naturally manipulate the invisible laws and affect time. But to you, you did not truly return to the ancient times, so you cannot participate. You can only be a bystander. So, in the end, that was just an illusion. No one has the power to truly change the flow of time, not even the heavenly Tao. Unless. After the ancestor's explanation, Du Xiaofu immediately understood. In the end, that experience had indeed brought him back to the ancient times. This was real, but he could only be a bystander and could not interfere with what happened back then. If that was the case, it would be more accurate to call it an illusion. Understanding was one thing, but the ancestor's last words piqued Du Xiaofu's interest. He hurriedly asked, unless what? Kid, you really are impatient. The ancestor sneered. The ancestor scolded with a smile, and then said, when one's cultivation reaches a certain level and understands the law of time, one can indeed change a part of time, but this is only a normal method, and it cannot affect a large area. Otherwise, the order of the world will be thrown into chaos, and no one knows what will happen. The laws of time, so that's how it is. Du Xiaofu pondered, and he could not help but think of the desolate ancient dimension. He did not know who had left behind that dimension, but it could actually accelerate time by several dozen times. It was truly incomparably mysterious. Presumably, the person who had refined the desolate ancient dimension must have had an unfathomable cultivation, and their attainments in the laws of time were even more profound. Hearing the ancestor's words, Du Xiaofu felt that the ancestor was intentionally hiding something from him about that, unless, and was unwilling to tell him. Although I have fused with the heavenly Tao and can mobilize the power of the invisible laws, I still have to follow the order of the world. I can only let you go back and take a look and know what happened, but I cannot truly affect the entire world. It is precisely because of the method I left behind in my burial place, oh, the tomb of the heavenly Tao that you speak of, that I was able to do all this. Moreover, your appearance here today is also my doing. The ancestor's body turned around, as if it was going to cause the entire space to rotate. It was a dazzling sight to behold. Ancestor, this junior understands. Du Xiaofu wanted to nod, but he really did not have a body, so he could not do this action at all. He thought for a moment and said, when this junior entered the tomb of the heavenly Tao, I believe that the ancestor used some method to leave a trace of my soul here. This way, even if I perish together with the demon god in the great calamity of the devil religion, there is still hope for my resurrection. You are indeed very clever, understanding with just a hint. However, the truth is a little different from what you think. I left a method on you when you first came here, but it was only the moment before you died that method was activated, and a strand of your soul was taken to this place. The ancestor looked at Du Xiaofu with a smile. His dignified face had an amiable expression, and his eyes were full of praise. What Du Xiaofu said was not far from the truth. So that's how it is. Du Xiaofu nodded slowly, and he could not help but feel extremely shocked by the ancestor's method. How many people in the world could do such a terrifying divine ability? However, in the blink of an eye, the ancestor had fused with the heavenly Tao and could mobilize the invisible laws of the world. It was understandable that he had arranged all of this in advance. In fact, this was a better explanation as to why the ancestor knew what he had experienced. But ancestor, my physical body is probably long dead. If I want to reconstruct a body, Du Xiaofu immediately said. Although he did not finish his words, his meaning was extremely obvious. Regarding this, I have also made preparations, but whether it will work or not, I can't say for sure. The ancestor nodded slightly and said. Could it be that the ancestor has also made arrangements for this matter? Du Xiaofu's eyes lit up, and he was instantly filled with hope. For his family, lovers, friends, and the countless people in the world, he was willing to die. However, if he could be reborn after the great calamity, it would be a wonderful thing. At the thought of having a chance to reunite with so many people again, he could not help but become excited. Father, mother, sister, little demon, little star, little Huang, little Lin, little Ba, tomboy, Sima Muhan, Dongli Qingqing, Yi Piaoling, little Qing, Jialo Jueyu, master. One figure after another flashed past Du Xiaofu's consciousness, and endless longing surged in his heart. When I was carving the thunder martial vein for the descendants of the Du family, I also left some blood essence in that stone coffin. I think that stone coffin is still well preserved. Otherwise, it would be impossible for you to open the thunder martial vein. The ancestor looked at Du Xiaofu and said. Stone coffin. Du Xiaofu was shocked and said to himself, as expected. Ever since he knew the origin of the thunder martial vein and the identity of the ancestor, he had guessed that the stone coffin stored in the ancestral temple should be related to the ancestor. He knew that the stone coffin was extraordinary. When he was young, his father would often carry him in to sleep. At first, when he woke up in a daze, he would break out in a cold sweat. When he told the elders about this, he was even warned not to disrespect the ancestor because he was playful. Later on, Du Xiaofu slowly got used to waking up from the stone coffin occasionally and did not mention this to anyone. The stone coffin definitely played a huge role in the opening of the thunder martial vein in his body. Now that he heard the ancestor mention it, it turned out that he had left some blood essence inside. No wonder it was of such great help to him. That's right. With the help of that stone coffin, you should be able to successfully reconstruct your body. However, if you want to revive your life force, it should still be a little troublesome. The first ancestor said. In fact, not only was it troublesome to revive his life force, the most important thing was that someone in the Du family knew how to use the stone coffin to extract the blood essence and use it to reconstruct Du Xiaofu's body. Otherwise, everything would be empty talk. No matter what, I have to go back and give it a try. I believe that drunkard dad and the others should be able to think of this. Du Xiaofu sighed deeply. He was extremely shocked and impressed by the ancestors' divine plan. He didn't expect that he had already thought of these things when he was in the primordial era and had left behind a series of backup plans. However, although he said that, his heart was beating like a drum. Everyone knew that the dead could not be revived. If drunkard dad and the others saw that his life force was gone, they would not have any hope at all and directly buried his remaining head. That would be really bad. Of course you have to go back and take a look. The only trace of your consciousness left here will dissipate one day. Now that I have died, I use some means to preserve a trace of my consciousness and tell you all this. After you go out, if your soul returns to its original position, then everything will be fine. Otherwise, you'll still be reduced to ashes. The ancestor looked at Du Xiaofu and said word by word. He was isolated in this space, and the moment before Du Xiaofu died, a trace of his soul was directly seized and brought to this place. No one knew what happened after that, and there was no way to determine the condition of his body. I have an immortal Xian body that has been tempered by the purple gold divine thunder. Even if I am buried, it will still be intact and will not decay in a short time. However, even if this trace of my soul returns, if I can't mobilize my own strength, I will still face a lot of trouble. Du Xiaofu couldn't help biting his teeth, feeling a headache and worry. Go back and take a look first. You are the most outstanding descendant of my Du family. If you can be revived, I can finally rest in peace. The ancestor suddenly sighed and said with emotion. Back then, he had merged with the heavenly Tao and mastered the order and rules of this world. He was restricted by the laws of heaven and earth. Rather than saying that he was fair and selfless, it was better to say that he was ruthless. Although he had the ability to reach the heavens, he could not make the slightest contribution to the descendants of the Du family. It was not until the final moment when he decided to suppress the demon god that he used his supreme ability to engrave the thunder martial vein in the bloodline of the Du family, which could be considered as making up for what he owed in his heart. Ancestor, if I can be revived, you should be able to too. Du Xiaofu suddenly said in a loud voice, his heart filled with excitement. He was full of admiration for the ancestor. For the sake of the world, he gave up his ruthless body and was willing to be obliterated by the invisible laws to suppress the demon god. In fact, he didn't have to do this at all. No matter how tragic the Great Tribulation was, the heavenly Tao was still the heavenly Tao. With the existence of the heavenly Tao, this world would never truly degenerate into a demon realm. There would definitely be new living beings born. The heavenly Tao was still supreme. Therefore, Du Xiaofu hoped that the ancestor could be like him and have a chance to be revived. In this way, not only him, but everyone in the Du family would probably be overjoyed. However, the ancestor looked at Du Xiaofu and said with a smile, "My body has long been destroyed, and my primordial spirit has also dissipated. This remaining trace of consciousness is really unable to do anything useful. You have to know that you are here because of the means I left behind before I died, not after. I'm only here to answer your questions. Not long after, I will also eventually dissipate. Doesn't that mean that the ancestor is really going to die?" Du Xiaofu could not help but feel a little sad. It was fine if he did not have any hope in his heart, but after having hope, he suddenly faced despair. This kind of emotion was really a heavy reality that was difficult to accept. Little fellow, don't be sad. I had already accepted it when I suppressed the demon god. Life and death are just a dream. Now, it's time for you to go back. The ancestor laughed loudly, and then gently waved his sleeve. As if he had activated some hidden method, the space trembled. At the same time, Du Xiaofu's soul was wrapped in a ball of light and quickly rushed out of this space. In the blink of an eye, he arrived at the Du family's ancestral hall in the desolate country and entered the body in the stone coffin. Chapter 2683. Just as Du Xiaofu's spirit entered his mind, a voice rang in his ears, "Little fellow, work hard. The Du family is in your hands." The voice was ethereal, dreamlike, and illusory. It was as if the heavens were singing, but Du Xiaofu heard it clearly. At this moment, his spirit had already entered the Naiwan palace in his mind and returned to his body. However, Du Xiaofu discovered that he could not control the movements of his body. He could not move his hands, speak, or even open his eyes. This was because the remaining strand of his spirit was too weak. It could only preserve a trace of consciousness and did not have any extra power to control his body. After the battle with the demon god, he was only left with a head. Where would his limbs come from? Fortunately, Du Xiaofu could also feel that after his spirit returned to his body, there was an extremely boundless life force that continuously gathered in his Naiwan palace and enveloped his spirit. The boundless aura of life constantly nourished this weak divine soul. Receiving nourishment in one's own body was more effective than any divine pill or elixir. Very quickly, the power of his spirit began to strengthen rapidly. From the initial trace of consciousness, it gradually transformed into the strength of a normal human spirit. It was also at this moment that he finally discovered that the power of his spirit could control his body. How can I recover so quickly? The life force in my body is so vast. The rapid strengthening of his spirit gave Du Xiaofu an indescribable surprise. His ancestors had already told him that they had left something behind in ancient times. However, it was unknown whether anyone could have thought of this. If after his death, his drunkard father and the others saw that there was no hope for him to survive and directly buried him, then this strand of spirit would have to face a great deal of trouble after it returned. Whether or not he could be reborn depended on the will of the heavens. However, he did not expect that not long after his spirit returned, he would receive such a boundless power. This was something that Du Xiaofu did not expect at all. This is, inside the stone coffin. Du Xiaofu slowly opened his eyes. A hazy light appeared, allowing him to see everything within his line of sight. In the blink of an eye, he was certain that he was in the stone coffin. No wonder. If it wasn't for the blood essence left behind by the ancestor in the stone coffin, how could there be such a vast amount of vitality flowing into his Naiwan palace? This result made Du Xiaofu very excited. It seemed that his father and the others had thought of this and hoped that he would be able to obtain a miracle in the stone coffin and be reborn. My body has been reconstructed. After a while, Du Xiaofu discovered something that surprised him even more. At this moment, not only was he inside the stone coffin, but he was also affected by the power of the essence blood within it and obtained limitless vitality. Moreover, his body had been completely reconstructed. It was not difficult to discover that the power in his body was extremely vast and vigorous. It was not much different from the strength of his physical body when he was at his peak. It was just that his soul had not recovered yet, so he was unable to use such a powerful physical strength. It seems that my drunkard father and the others also guessed that this stone coffin was extraordinary, so they let me in, hoping that I could be reborn. Du Xiaofu was overjoyed, and the corners of his mouth could not help but curl into a smile. In fact, his ancestor had left his essence blood in the stone coffin in the hope that his descendants could extract it and use it to rejuvenate Du Xiaofu's vitality. However, his drunkard father had hit the mark by a stroke of luck. Putting his remaining head in the stone coffin might take a longer time than directly extracting the essence blood, but there was no difference in the effect. The heavens have not forsaken me, Du Xiaofu. Du Xiaofu could not help but sigh in his heart. All of this was the will of the heavens. Otherwise, if he were to fight against the demon god, only death would await him. Apart from this, he could not help but admire his ancestors' foresight. He seemed to have calculated all of this in the ancient times and left a backup plan. This caused Du Xiaofu to be extremely puzzled. Hurry up and recover. After the pleasant surprise, Du Xiaofu did not lament too much. He closed his eyes and silently mobilized the power in his body, beginning to recover his soul. He knew that his relatives were still waiting for him outside. If they saw that he had been resurrected, they would be overjoyed. After suppressing the thoughts in his heart, Du Xiaofu slowly gathered a trace of qi and began to nourish his soul. With the current strength of his soul, he was unable to mobilize too much power. Therefore, it would take some time for him to recover to his previous peak state. In this way, Du Xiaofu devoted himself to recovery. His thunder martial vein operated unconsciously, and waves of power entered his mind space. In addition, in the space of his mud pill palace, thunderbolts combined to form strange patterns, as if they were interpreting some profound principles of heaven and earth. In fact, the moment Du Xiaofu's soul returned to his body, little Xingxing, Du Xiaoyao, Du Xiaojing, Du Xiaohuang, and the others, who were sitting cross-legged outside the ancestral temple, all sensed something at the same time and woke up from their cultivation. However, when they tried to capture the faint fluctuation, they found nothing. It was as if there was no trace to be found. I think this should have something to do with boss. After everyone looked at each other for a while, Du Xiaoyao said with certainty. Hearing this, the others all turned their heads and looked at the ancestral temple door behind them, wanting to spy on something. However, what made them feel even more helpless was that Du Xiaofu's body did not undergo any more changes in the stone coffin. After the 4 experts of the Beigong family attacked, the vast sea of qi continued to circulate, and they could not sense any abnormalities at all. These people were at least half-step heavenly saints. With Du Xiaofu's current state, they could have peeked into his mind and observed. However, no one dared to do so, as no one knew what kind of effect it would have. If Du Xiaofu was at the most critical moment and was disturbed like this, it would be a great sin. Therefore, after everyone sensed the fluctuation, they did not take any action. Let's continue to wait. I'm afraid it won't be long before my father can truly wake up. Little Xingxing's eyes reflected 2 rays of golden light, like 2 beams of divine light, with a strange luster. From the beginning to the end, she was the one who believed the most in Du Xiaofu's successful resurrection. This belief had never wavered in the slightest. Time flew by like quicksand. The recovery of Du Xiaofu's soul had truly taken up quite a lot of time. It had been 9 months since the end of the great calamity, until his soul returned to its original position, and then from a weak wisp of soul consciousness, it had gradually transformed into a powerful origin spirit. On this day, the sky was clear and there were no clouds for thousands of kilometers. The azure sky was like a smooth roll of silk, unfurling above the 9 heavens. It was noon, and the scorching sun hung high in the sky. Its radiance poured down for thousands of kilometers, illuminating everything in the world. In the stone city of the desolate kingdom, the many experts in the imperial palace were the same as before. Most of them were busy with their own cultivation, wanting to reach a new level of cultivation before they went to the 33 heavens. Among the peak experts, only Du Tingxian, Zhen Qingchun, Yi Wuming, Morong Yorua, and a few others would occasionally appear to arrange matters. Ouyang Shuang, Hun Ji, Sima Muhan, Yi Zijin, Little Tiger Du, and so on were all in seclusion. Outside the ancestral shrine, Little Xingxing, Du Xiaoyao, Du Xiaolin, and Du Xiaoba continued to silently wait. All of them were in a state of neither joy nor worry. They were no longer in a hurry to hope that Du Xiaofu could awaken quickly, because this matter was indeed not something that could be resolved by being anxious. In the Kyushu domain of the 3 continents, all the living beings were busy with their own matters. They did not develop any other emotions because of the fine weather. The calamity had passed long ago, and the demon god had died. Everyone had let go of the heavy burdens on their shoulders, making everything seem so harmonious and peaceful. Probably right now, only the Rock Emperor's true resurrection still affected the hearts of many people who knew the truth. Suddenly, in the clear sky where there was not a single cloud, a thunderclap abruptly rang out. The tremendous sound was like the beating of a drum, as if thousands of soldiers and horses were galloping together. It was a shocking sight. Following which, the entire sky turned dark and gloomy. The azure scenery was immediately replaced by a hazy gray. Dark clouds continued to gather, and black fog surged and fell from the sky, as if it was going to connect to the ground. A terrifying pressure instantly covered the entire 3 continents, 9 continents, and 1 world. It was such a fine day, so why did it change just like that? Many living beings could not help but become doubtful when they discovered this, but they did not think too much about it. This was because there were very few people in this world who could see everything that was happening. Even heavenly saints like little Xingxing could not constantly release the power of their souls to sense the sudden changes. Many living beings without cultivation all rushed towards their residences under this situation. They felt like a storm was about to descend. Rumble, another bolt of lightning appeared within the layers of surging dark clouds, and it shook the world. A bolt of lightning that was as thick as a mountain shuttled through the pitch-black clouds. It was like a huge dragon that was millions of meters long as it churned and twisted. It stirred up a storm that swept through the heavens and the earth. In the blink of an eye, a boundless gust of wind blew in every corner of this realm, whistling incessantly. 10,000-year-old trees were snapped one after another, boulders that weighed tens of thousands of kilograms flew into the air, and huge waves surged from numerous rivers. If it weren't for the fact that the many buildings in the cultivation world were supported by their own formations, they would probably have been blown into a mess of ruins by this huge gale. Along with all of this came a terrifying pressure that was so terrifying that it made people tremble. It immediately descended and suppressed the souls of every single living being. Something's wrong. Something big must be happening. At this moment, many experts with profound cultivations understood that this was definitely not a simple change in the weather. Something terrifying must have happened to be able to cause such a disturbance. It's from father's side. Is he about to wake up? Outside the Du family's ancestral hall, little Xingxing, Du Xiaoyao, Du Xiaojing, Du Xiaoba, and the others had already retreated far away, standing in midair. When the huge lightning dragon was formed, they had sensed that a vast aura had rushed out from the ancestral hall, pushing everyone away. The aura was extremely powerful. Even with little Xingxing's cultivation, he could not withstand the impact of the huge force. He could only watch from afar. Xiaofu, it must be Xiaofu waking up. Du Tingxian, Zhen Qingchun, Yi Wuming, Han Aodong, and everyone from the desolate country were alarmed. They all gathered behind little Xingxing and the others, stopping to watch. In their eyes, the Du family's ancestral hall was already wrapped in a ball of bright lightning, as if it had formed a huge lightning array barrier. Within it, there were waves of powerful fluctuations. It did not seem like the energy aura of an ordinary living being. Instead, it was close to a strange rhythm between heaven and earth. It was extremely magical. This is great. I've been waiting for this day. Yi Wuming could not help but say excitedly. His slightly aged body began to tremble. The change came from the Du family's ancestral hall. It must have something to do with Du Xiaofu. They had been waiting for Du Xiaofu to wake up for 9 months. Although the more time passed, the calmer everyone's hearts became. They no longer hoped for this day to come sooner. But at this moment, when they really faced all of this, they could not help but be pleasantly surprised. Just as everyone was looking at them in shock and joy, there was a further movement in the ancestral hall. A large net that was woven from lightning bolts charged out through the roof and quickly spread high into the sky. The lightning net emitted a peerlessly overbearing aura. Thick bolts of lightning flashed as if they could destroy everything in the world. Nevertheless, when it charged out, it did not cause any damage to the Du family's ancestral hall at all. After it charged high into the sky, it kept expanding at a flying speed and became extremely huge. Soon, it enveloped the entire sky of the 3 continents and Kyushu region. Numerous thunderbolts roared and roared. It was as if 1,000 waves were collapsing at the same time, causing the entire world to begin to boil. A terrifying aura was spreading out, and an awe-inspiring pressure surged up into the sky and down into the underworld, surging in all directions. Despite that, the terrifying aura and pressure did not have much of a destructive aura. Instead, it carried a unique charm that was compatible with heaven and earth. Even if countless living beings were in this situation, even though they were trembling and did not know what was going on, they did not feel too much fear. What they could feel was boundless throbbing. They were deeply in awe of this terrifying heavenly might, and they knew how insignificant and lowly they were. What is going on? Why is there such a vast scene? This situation seems to have never happened before. It's really strange. Many living beings did not know where all of this came from, and they were extremely puzzled. No one had experienced such a scene before. It was true that they were in awe of the heavenly might, but it did not make them feel very afraid. Ordinary living beings would not know the source of all of this, but there were still many cultivators above the Saint Realm in this world. They were scattered all over the 3 continents and Kyushu region. The golden-winged great rocks, the phoenixes, the dragons, the demonic world's sacred demon temple, the ancient wilderness continent's sacred temple and the Beast Alliance, and the Kyushu region's Seiman Sword sect, the ancient heaven sect, the profound talisman sect, and many other factions broke through the void and quickly rushed in the direction of the desolate country. According to the guesses of these people, there was an 80 to 90% chance that such a commotion had something to do with the great rock emperor Du Xiaofu. It was very likely that he was about to awaken. This was undoubtedly great news for everyone. Such a huge commotion. It's even bigger than the commotion caused by that guy when he surpassed the heavenly saint stage after fusing with the complete law of lightning. I wonder what kind of situation he'll cause this time. No matter what happens, at the very least, he should really be about to awaken. Let's hurry up and go take a look. Alright, he's finally about to awaken. This old man has been waiting for half a year. I really wonder what kind of cultivation level he'll reach after he recovers. Will he surpass the Sky Saint realm, or will he surpass the God-sizing realm of the 33 heavens? Many living beings who knew what was going on constantly discussed. While they were excited, they were also curious about what realm Du Xiaofu could reach. After the Skywood Divine Tree Ancestor and the 4 members of the Beigong clan had told them, they also knew that the Sky Saint realm of this world was the God-sizing realm. Du Xiaofu had completely fused with the laws of lightning, so as long as he wanted to, he could surpass the God-sizing realm at any time and reach the truth-severing realm. No one in this world could compare to him. Many people excitedly stepped on the road, quickly rushing toward the desolate nation. Among these people were many of Du Xiaofu's relatives and old friends. At this time, they were all moving with all their strength, swarming toward the desolate nation. That kid is really surprising. He's actually about to revive. He, the person that my girl from the school of Yin Yang has taken a fancy to is truly extraordinary. Let alone this minor world, even in the 33 heavens, such a scene is rarely seen even once in 10,000 years. I wonder if something unexpected will happen this time. The Taoist, Confucian, Mahist, Farmer, and Yin Yang families of the 9 great families, as well as Qian Shuzi, Sun Yufang, Hu Sandao, Zhou Qinglian, Qi Xinglang, and the others, had directly left when the Beigong clan arrived in the desolate nation. Later on, they also learned that Du Xiaofu was about to revive. Therefore, at this time, in the face of such a huge phenomenon, these experts from the outside world were also incomparably shocked. Because of the friendship between their branch families and the desolate nation, these people did not delay. Like the other powers, they all rushed toward the desolate nation, wanting to be the first to hear the news. Chapter 2684. Above the sky of this realm, the boundless dark clouds were still surging. Thick layers of clouds descended, as if they were going to press down on the heads of all living creatures, making it difficult for them to breathe. Terrifying bolts of lightning shuttled back and forth between the layers of clouds, as if huge dragons were twisting their bodies, shaking the void until it caved in. Rumble, vast thunder rumbled, as if countless huge dragons were roaring. Lightning could be seen flashing from time to time in various parts of the dark clouds, sometimes bright and sometimes dark. The clear sky and the scorching sun hanging high in the sky had long been covered. All living creatures were alarmed by such a scene. Most people did not know why such a situation had occurred. That awe-inspiring heavenly might pressed down on everyone's hearts, making them deeply feel what reverence was. It was as if they were facing a god, making them want to prostrate and worship. Amidst the howling winds, the expected rainstorm did not descend. Furthermore, there was no trace of fear in the hearts of any of the living beings. The oppressive feeling produced by such a vast and terrifying scene did not make people feel fear or dread. Everyone was waiting quietly, waiting to see how all these changes would end. When the time came, they would know where the source of all this was. In the ancestral hall of the Du family, Du Xiaofu had already stood up from the stone coffin, floating in the room, and gently opened his eyes. There was no aura emitted from his body, and he looked very ordinary. Inside the room, the scene was the complete opposite of what he had experienced outside. It was peaceful, and there was not the slightest ripple or storm. "I've finally fully recovered." Du Xiaofu let out a long sigh, and the corners of his mouth curled into a smile, appearing unusually satisfied. In his mind's mud pill palace, the remaining wisp of spirit consciousness had finally grown stronger after a few months under the nourishment of the boundless vitality in his body. From a tiny and weak spirit, it had become a powerful spirit with the ability to destroy the world. Not only that, during the process, the law imprint that was originally engraved on the spirit had been burned up during the battle with the demon god, turning into the most terrifying energy that had killed the demon god. At this time, with the help of the marks left behind in the wisp of spirit, the law imprint had also been completed. Strange patterns flickered in Du Xiaofu's mind. Among these patterns, a small area was already very complete. He knew that this was because he had integrated the complete law of lightning, causing that part of the law imprint to be completed, resulting in this situation. There were also some miraculous patterns in the universe of lightning, some of them were, but they were still very small when compared to the part of the lightning law of lightning. My cultivation has surpassed the Sky Saint realm. This feels really good. Du Xiaofu sighed. He silently sensed the power he now possessed and became even happier. During the battle with the demon god, Huolei Laozu and Lei Tianhuang had sacrificed themselves to help Du Xiaofu complete the law of lightning and surpass the Sky Saint realm. But at the time, Du Xiaofu hadn't been in the mood to carefully comprehend what kind of power he possessed. At the time, he'd only been thinking about what method he could use to completely kill the demon god. In the end, he'd risked his life and finally succeeded. Of course, he didn't know what had happened after his death. He didn't know that the demon god possessed an immortal body and had been resurrected, only to have his spirit devoured by Jiangchen in the end. All of this must have been arranged by the ancestor. Du Xiaofu sighed deeply. If not for the ancestor's early plans, he really would have died without a doubt. He felt somewhat sorrowful. After all, the ancestor had fallen in the primordial era and been obliterated by the formless laws. He'd only left behind a trace of consciousness to tell him a few things. It was absolutely impossible to resurrect him. Back then, the ancestor used the law of lightning to surpass the Sky Saint realm and merged with the heavenly Tao. He became the supreme ruler of this realm and stood above all living beings. What kind of existence is the heavenly Tao? Du Xiaofu was puzzled. He'd pondered this question more than once, but he'd never been able to find an answer. Now that he possessed the power to surpass the Sky Saint realm, he wondered if he could try merging with the heavenly Tao. If he could really do it, then he'd truly be invincible in this realm. However, Du Xiaofu felt somewhat repulsed. After merging with the heavenly Tao, he'd have to be bound by the formless laws of this realm and couldn't interfere with the affairs of other living beings. Otherwise, he'd face the same fate as the ancestor and be obliterated. There were too many things in his heart that he couldn't let go. He couldn't be so heartless as to possess a supreme yet cold-blooded and emotionless body. There's no harm in prying into the heavenly Tao's existence, but I can't truly merge with it. I just want to know what kind of existence it is. Du Xiaofu's eyes glowed as he silently muttered to himself. Before entering the river of time, he'd always thought the heavenly Tao was a kind of connection between the heavens and man. It was an illusory existence that was formless, and unfathomable. However, after learning about the ancestor's matter, he became even more curious. What exactly did the formless laws of a realm represent? What kind of trajectory did the vast and profound laws of heaven and earth follow? All of this made Du Xiaofu's heart itch unbearably, and he wanted to know the truth. He'd originally planned to meet up with his alcoholic father, sister, and little Xingxing as soon as he recovered, but now he changed his mind and planned to do something else first. Complete laws are compatible with the laws of heaven and earth. Through this, I'll be able to trigger the supreme and profound laws. This must be the secret to merging with the heavenly Tao. As Du Xiaofu thought to himself, he moved as well. His body emitted a dazzling purple-gold light as he slowly rose. Using the laws of space, he directly passed through the roof of the ancestral hall and appeared in the outside world. Xiaofu. Brother. Father. Uncle Xiaofu. Rock Emperor. As soon as he appeared, the people around the imperial palace immediately cried out in surprise. Du Tingxian, Du Xiaoyao, O Yangshuang, Zhen Qingchen, Du Xiaolin, Du Xiaoba, Sima Muhan, Du Xiaojing, Yi Piaoling, and the others were all stunned. After calling out, they were speechless for quite a while. They knew that today's great disturbance must have been caused by Du Xiaofu. It was very likely that he had fully awakened and was about to reappear before them. However, at this moment, they could not help but feel indescribably shocked and they saw him float out of the ancestral hall. The young man's face was far too familiar. It could be said that over the past half a year, many experts of the desolate kingdom had been waiting for him to awaken. And now, he had really appeared in front of everyone in such a shocking manner. It was impossible for everyone not to be surprised. Crackle, high up in the sky, a huge bolt of lightning suddenly blasted down, directly enveloping Du Xiaofu's body. It exploded, emitting a terrifying wave. Du Xiaofu was surrounded by countless bolts of lightning, but his body did not tremble at all. Instead, under the contrast of the lightning, he looked like a god who had descended to the mortal world. A majestic and domineering aura arose spontaneously. His body was still slowly rising. The purplish-gold light mixed with the lightning. He looked like a purplish-gold morning sun that broke through the horizon and slowly rose until it hung in the middle of the sky. At this moment, many residents and cultivators around the stone city of the desolate kingdom noticed this scene. Instantly, they were all in an uproar. Look, it's the Rock Emperor. It's the Rock Emperor. A sharp-eyed creature shouted. When he saw the face of the person shrouded in purple light, he could not help but tremble. What? Didn't the Rock Emperor fall? How can it be the Rock Emperor? Are you confused? Some people with low cultivation or no cultivation were surprised by the sudden scene, but they still could not believe the words of the people around them. Everyone knew that the Rock Emperor had fallen in the battle with the demon god. For the peace of this world, he had chosen to perish together with the demon god. The dead couldn't come back to life. As time slowly passed, many creatures slowly accepted this result. At this moment, when they heard someone say that the figure rising into the sky was the Rock Emperor, no one dared to believe it. The Rock Emperor. It's really the Rock Emperor. The Rock Emperor is still alive. The Rock Emperor is still alive. He has appeared again. The Rock Emperor is not dead. He did not die in the Great Calamity. Many people with high cultivation bases screamed out in shock. The others could not see the situation in the distant sky, but they could see it clearly. That familiar face was without a doubt the Rock Emperor. It could not be fake. Could it be that the great Rock Emperor is still alive? This is great. The Rock Emperor has come back to life. He has been reborn and has descended into this world once again. God bless the desolate country. God bless the Rock Emperor. Those who could not see the scene in the distance finally came to a realization after hearing the narration of many experts. One person might have seen wrongly, but not everyone. Intense cheers began to erupt from the stone city and the desolate country. Countless creatures were extremely excited. They could not wait to rush into the sky and come into close contact with the Rock Emperor. At this moment, whether it was the elderly or the children who had just passed the age of ignorance, many people began to cry. Everyone's hearts trembled with excitement. They had received a great surprise. The Rock Emperor is still alive. This is great. Good, good. The Rock Emperor is still alive. God has eyes. The citizens of the Stone City pay respects to the Rock Emperor. The citizens of the desolate country pay respects to the Rock Emperor. Greetings to the Rock Emperor. After the excitement, a large number of people began to kneel down and kowtow to the figure high in the sky. Their bodies trembled uncontrollably as tears filled their eyes. The Rock Emperor was still alive. This was a gift from the heavens. This was the good news for all living beings. At this moment, many experts from all over the 3 continents, Kyushu, including the golden-winged great rocks, the phoenixes, the dragons, the sacred demon temple, the divine hall, the beast alliance, the ancient heavenly sect, the profound talisman sect, the sky thunder fortress, the school of Moism, the school of agriculture, the Confucian school, the school of Yin-Yang, the Taoist school, and many others, all arrived one after another and entered the desolate country. With their powerful cultivation, they could naturally see the figure in the sky above the stone city from afar. He really came back to life, my good grandson. It's good that he came back to life. I have not been worried about this matter for the past few months in vain. The Grand Shaman has finally come back to life. Our Confucian school is truly fortunate. As expected of the Rock Emperor. I knew it. How could you die so easily? Many experts were indescribably excited and emotional. This was because Du Xiaofu's resurrection made them extremely happy. Although they had already received news about the desolate country and knew that Du Xiaofu would once again enter the sights of all living beings, they could not help but be pleasantly surprised when they saw the day for themselves. Why can't we announce such good news to the world? In the crowd, Jallo Batian laughed loudly. Then, beast energy burst out from his body and mixed with his words, converging into a boundless voice that almost spread throughout the 3 continents, Kyushu. The Rock Emperor has come back to life. The Rock Emperor has come back to life. The Rock Emperor has come back to life. This voice was extremely loud, like a sudden clap of thunder, rolling in the sky and quickly rushing in all directions. He wasn't the only one. When some of the experts in the distance heard such a sound, they also followed suit. One by one, they began to shout at the top of their voices. The Rock Emperor has come back to life. The Rock Emperor has come back to life. Under the loud shouts of one expert after another, the news spread to the ears of all living beings in just a short while. This scene made Jallo Batian reveal the happiest smile and laugh non-stop. Beside him, the old lady, Jallo Maluo, gave him a slight glare but did not say anything. The fact that her grandson could come back to life was already an indescribable comfort to the old lady. The Rock Emperor has come back to life. In the 3 continents, Kyushu, countless living beings were originally unaware of all this and were all immersed in the heaven and earth anomaly, not knowing what was going on. At this moment, when they suddenly heard this, they were instantly stunned. But immediately after, the entire realm was in an uproar. Countless living beings were overjoyed and overjoyed. Is this true? Has the Rock Emperor really come back to life? It must be true. Only an expert like the Rock Emperor can cause such a heaven and earth anomaly. Great! That's great! The Rock Emperor has come back to life. He's not dead. May the heavens take pity on me. I'm sure I'm not dreaming. The Rock Emperor is invincible and peerless. His achievement sees creation. The Rock Emperor. The Rock Emperor. Waves of cheers erupted from the living beings. Their voices shook the 9 heavens, causing the boundless dark clouds in the sky to surge even more violently. The entire realm seemed to be breathing in joy. Even the boundless clouds that covered the entire realm could not stop this atmosphere. After the initial heated discussion, countless creatures began to shout at the top of their lungs, shouting the name of the great rock emperor in unison. Some of the living beings without cultivation quickly lost their voices from shouting, but they still waved their arms and jumped up and down. As for those who were strong enough to see the figure in the sky above the desolate nation, they immediately knelt down and prostrated themselves in worship to Du Xiaofu's figure. It was that young man who took the lead in fighting the demon god during the great calamity and shouldered the greatest pressure. In the end, he fought the demon god to death and perished together with it. Even if the demon god was resurrected, it would lose most of its strength. Such prostrations represented the extreme joy in their hearts. Such prostrations represented the extreme reverence they had for the Rock Emperor. Such prostrations were something that the young man who stood tall in the sky could accept. The Rock Emperor. Greetings, Rock Emperor. Greetings, Rock Emperor. The living beings who could not see Du Xiaofu's true body all prostrated themselves on the ground. Their loud shouts shook the heavens and the earth, echoing through the sky. At this moment, the belief of all living beings in the world was united once again, just like the cry of the purple-robed young man who fought the demon god during the great calamity and the mournful cry of the Rock Emperor after his death. Within the veins of the earth, surging and vast energy surged like a river, gathering in the direction of the desolate nation from all directions. This was the boundless imperial chi of the imperial palace, all of it poured into the desolate nation's imperial seal, hegemon shadow. Similarly, Du Xiaofu, who was slowly rising into the sky, was now filled with boundless energy. This was the support of the faith of all living beings in the world, allowing him to reach the most terrifying realm. Let's go, let's hurry to the Stone City. This time, that brat probably won't just be resurrected. He'll probably cause an even greater commotion. In the crowd of the ancient heaven sect, Gu Qingyang's hair fluttered in the wind, giving off an elegant feeling of sweating. His gaze swept across the boundless dark clouds that covered the sky, then looked at the purple-robed figure standing proudly in the sky above the Stone City. It was not difficult to guess that there would be an even greater commotion this time. Otherwise, with that brat's strength, it should have been easy for him to control the phenomenon between heaven and earth, and he would not have been so ostentatious. That's right. I'm also very curious. I really want to know how far he'll go. Sima Taxing lamented. That young man, who was his junior brother and his son-in-law, had brought too many shocks to the world. However, every time he did, it made people look forward to it. Let's go. As they spoke, many experts took action and flew towards the direction of the Stone City of the desolate country. In fact, with their cultivations, even if they stood very far away, they could still clearly see Du Xiaofu's situation. However, they still wanted to take a closer look and see what kind of commotion the young man was going to cause. Let's go as well. In their respective places, the golden-winged rocks, the phoenixes, the Confucian school, the school of agriculture, the divine hall, and countless other forces that had deep ties with the desolate nation all set off again, heading towards the Stone City. Chapter 2685. Du Xiaofu stood in the sky above the Stone City, his head connected to the dark clouds. Large patches of purplish gold light and lightning intertwined around him, making him look like a god in this world, domineering and majestic. Above his head, the huge net of light formed by the thunder martial veins almost covered the entire sky of this world. Terrifying bolts of lightning pierced through the clouds, bringing with them an incomparably vast power that shook the entire universe. What is the way of heaven? Du Xiaofu asked softly. Only he could hear such a question, and no one could answer it. After fully recovering, the first thing he wanted to do was to take a peek at the highest secret in this world. In the past, Du Xiaofu's understanding of the way of heaven was a kind of pure connection between heaven and man. It was an illusory existence that was incomparably mysterious and unfathomable. However, ever since he learned that his ancestor had once merged with the way of heaven and stood above all living beings in this world, Du Xiaofu's view of the way of heaven had changed accordingly. The cultivation of living beings had always followed the most mysterious rules of heaven and earth to increase one's strength, thus gaining the ability to understand heaven and earth. No matter how supreme the way of heaven was, it was still a part of heaven and earth. It was not something that could not be explored. Du Xiaofu's legalism, which was deeply entangled, had the saying, "The way of heaven is far, but the way of man is far, and the way of man is far." Therefore, the existence of the way of heaven had its own corresponding trajectory that could be explored by cultivators. However, this kind of trajectory was not something that anyone could come into contact with. My ancestor used the law of thunder to surpass the heavenly saint realm. After possessing the complete law of thunder, he could use it to connect with the invisible rules of heaven and earth, thus creating a connection between heaven and man, and finally merging with the way of heaven. Du Xiaofu muttered to himself as he continued to ponder in his heart. At the same time, the imprint of the laws in his mind moved, and the picture that was drawn from the complete law of lightning immediately released the brightest light. It bloomed in his Naiwan palace like a scorching sun in the sky, extremely dazzling. Thunder martial vein, open. Du Xiaofu's shout was like a clap of thunder in the sky, suddenly exploding above the stone city. In the next instant, the lightning net that covered the entire sky continued to expand in size. The crisscrossing lightning ropes were like huge pillars of light that stretched across the sky. After integrating 36 spiritual thunders and Lei Tianhuang's and Huolei Laozu's thunder origin, Du Xiaofu's thunder martial vein had reached the limit of the thunder law. The current lightning net represented the most complete law of lightning. Du Xiaofu closed his eyes slightly and used his mind to communicate with the thunder martial vein. Slowly, a mysterious and unfathomable feeling rose in his heart. Is this the law of Great Tao, the law of heaven and earth? Du Xiaofu could not help but blurt out these words. In his perception, through the thunder martial vein, he seemed to be connected to some invisible power. Under normal circumstances, this kind of power could not be sensed by the naked eye or the power of the primordial spirit. However, at this moment, the strange rhythm was clearly transmitted into Du Xiaofu's mind, and he caught some illusory traces. This kind of capture was different from the ordinary six senses. It was not any of the four senses of seeing, hearing, smelling, or touching. It was more like a combination of heaven and man, an inexplicable touch in the void that could not be expressed in words. However, when Du Xiaofu was able to touch it, he felt as if he could see, hear, smell, and touch it with his own eyes. His eyes were closed, but there seemed to be images and traces appearing in front of his eyes. His 10 fingers moved in the void as if he was stroking some strange thing, feeling it with his touch. His nose moved unconsciously, as if he had smelled some kind of mysterious smell, which made his mind quicken. In his ears, there seemed to be a mysterious sound, like the sonorous voice of the great Tao. At this moment, even his heart seemed to be jumping along with some mysterious fluctuations. Du Xiaofu knew that all these feelings were a manifestation of the traces of the great Tao. Usually, they could not be grasped, but they were everywhere, affecting every blade of grass, tree, sand, and dust in the world at all times, as well as the billions of living beings. How can I merge with the heavenly Tao? Du Xiaofu was still thinking in his heart, imagining the scene of his ancestor merging with the heavenly Tao. Swoosh, under Du Xiaofu's control, the thunder martial vein that covered the entire sky of this world began to change into a pattern, clearly appearing in the sky. In the next moment, the entire world suddenly erupted with an extremely terrifying pressure. Rumble, the earth suddenly trembled, as if the sky and earth were turned upside down. The huge earthquake caused the entire world to shake. Swoosh, immediately after, the shape of the thunder martial vein in the sky changed again, and another mysterious pattern appeared. Following this change in the situation, the frightening earthquake disappeared in an instant. What followed was another scene. Walala, in the realm of the 3 continents Kyushu, every river and sea immediately boiled. Monstrous waves rushed into the sky, striking the 9 heavens. Boundless wind and waves shook the sky, and the water of the 4 seas all stood up, looking like heavenly pillars condensed from the water of the lake and sea, holding up the sky. Swoosh, the thunderbolt net that covered the sky changed shape again. The monstrous water of the lake and sea suddenly lost the traction of the mysterious force, and all of them fell from the sky, heavily smashing into the riverbed and the sea path, causing an earth-shattering sound as if the end of the world had come. Pop, 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 after the net formed by the thunder martial vein changed shape again, countless plants in this world seemed to have suddenly taken a big dose of tonic, and began to grow crazily. The lush green trees sprouted new tender branches, the withered jaspers grew new buds, and the roots of the small grass steadily pierced deep into the ground. Swoosh, Du Xiaofu controlled the thunder martial vein and changed it again. Immediately after, another strange scene appeared in every part of this world. This. What's going on? Why are there so many strange things happening? Who can tell me what's going on? Is the end of the world coming? This is too strange. How can this be? Could it be that all of this has something to do with the Rock Emperor? Many living creatures were panicking and shocked, and they were all confused. Landslides, tsunamis, tides ebbed and flowed, flowers bloomed, heavenly lightning and earthly fire. The appearance of these scenes made everyone feel confused, and they had no idea what was going on. Countless living creatures were originally kowtowing to the Rock Emperor, and they could not hide their excitement. However, these sudden strange events happened one after another, and they could not help but feel flustered. In the end, they could only look at the figure high in the sky again. The source of all of this might really be him. I knew it. I knew it. This kid's appearance this time will definitely cause even more commotion. This is too unbelievable. This is not an ability that a living creature should have. Affecting the entire world. This is the work of nature. I'm afraid only the heavenly Tao can do this. This kid is too extraordinary. He'll definitely be an outstanding person. Even if he goes to the 33 heavens, no one will stop his rise. I believe that one day, he'll be able to stand at the top of the 33 heavens and laugh proudly at the common people. The golden-winged great rocks, the Confucians, the Taoists, the Phoenixes, and many other experts could not help but lose their composure and cry out loudly. Perhaps most of the living creatures in the Kyushu realm of the 3 continents could not understand what Du Xiaofu's actions meant. However, to cultivators above the Saint realm, this was not considered a big secret. They could feel that every time the lightning net in the sky twisted and combined, it seemed to deduce a certain principle of heaven and earth. These changes and distortions were all changes according to the unseen feeling, and they carried the invisible traces of the heavenly Tao. Every single change was an interpretation of the deepest profundities of the heaven Tao. It was because of this that every time the lightning net underwent a change, it would cause strange phenomena to appear in the world. What is Xiaofu doing? Why is there such a change? With such a great momentum, I'm afraid his intentions are not simple. In the desolate country, countless experts had already gathered here, and they were all inexplicably shocked. As for little Xingxing, Du Tingxian, Du Xiaoyao, and the others, they were incomparably shocked. Hearing the discussions of many experts, Du Tingshuan's eyes shone as he thought carefully about something. Suddenly, his heart thumped. He was shocked as if he had received a great shock. He cried out, could it be that Xiaofu wants to merge with the heavenly Tao like the ancestor of the Du family? Many experts beside him could not help but feel a chill in their hearts when they heard this. They were deeply shocked. The more they thought about it, the more they felt that Du Tingshuan's words were very likely. The ancestor of the Du family had once merged with the heavenly Tao, but after suppressing the demon god in primordial ancient town, he had fallen. Since then, the world of this world had been greatly suppressed. It was difficult for living beings to break through to the saint realm, let alone surpass the heavenly saint realm and merge with the heavenly Tao. Therefore, since ancient times, the position of the heavenly Tao had always been empty, and no one had been able to obtain it. Now, Du Xiaofu had used the spiritual thunder left behind by his ancestor to obtain the complete law of lightning. He had surpassed the Saint Realm and was worthy of being called the #1 person in the entire Kyushu domain. With such a realm, it would not be difficult to merge with the heavenly Tao like his ancestor. This kid wants to shock the world again. Yi Wuming's expression was wooden as he spoke slowly. His old face seemed to be petrified. At the side, the experts from all over the Kyushu domain had the same expression. Everyone's mouth was wide open, and they did not know what to say. Every pattern represents a law of evolution of the heavenly Tao in this world. It's a representation of the great Tao. If you can comprehend it thoroughly, you can shorten the time you need to comprehend it by yourself. Zhen Qingchun said in a daze, and he was extremely shocked. Ever since he understood Du Xiaofu's intention, he could naturally see what the patterns evolved from the thunder martial vein represented. Don't even think about comprehending it thoroughly. Being able to remember 10% of the trajectory of a pattern is also very beneficial to us. Jalobatian sighed with emotion as if he was about to lose his mind. We're lucky to be able to witness this scene today. What are you waiting for? It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Hurry up and comprehend it. Xian Shuzi, the Taoist expert from the 33rd domain, said hurriedly. He was extremely excited. It's such a rare opportunity. If we miss it, we'll be struck by lightning. Du Xiaoyao suddenly shouted, and then his eyes stared intently at Gao Tian. Du Tingxian, Zhen Qingchun, Gu Qingyang, Jialo Batian, Sun Yufang, and many other cultivators above the Saint Realm did not dare to delay any longer. They all opened their eyes wide and looked at the patterns that appeared in the sky, trying hard to find something from them. They all knew that the heavenly Tao was formless, and it was very difficult for cultivators to find its true essence. At this moment, many patterns of the great Tao were displayed in the form of patterns in front of them. If they did not take this opportunity to comprehend it properly, it would be a great loss. Even if Du Xiaofu could finally integrate the heavenly Tao, he would not be able to explain its mysteries to them. Some things could only be understood, but could not be explained in words. Everyone's eyes were fixed on the scene in the sky. The images changed one after another, causing waves of fluctuations in the world. The power of the heavenly Tao evolved in the sky and affected the invisible power in this world, causing many strange things to happen. It was like a miracle. The experts were shocked and excited. Only Du Tingxian and some other people in the desolate country were a little worried. The heavenly Tao is selfless and heartless. Is it a blessing or a curse that Xiaofu has integrated the heavenly Tao? Du Tingxian sighed in his heart, and an inexplicable bitterness welled up in his heart. After integrating the heavenly Tao, it was naturally above all living things in this world. Even if all living things were destroyed and nothing existed, it would not affect the heavenly Tao. Even when time rotated and everything was reborn, the heavenly Tao would still be the heavenly Tao. It was supreme. However, with the body of the heavenly Tao, it could no longer interfere with the affairs of all living things. It could only face all living things with an aloof attitude and could not interfere with everything in the world. Otherwise, it would be a dead end if it was obliterated by the invisible rules. The example of the ancestors of the Du family was right there. They really did not wish for Du Xiaofu to walk on such a path. Xiaofu has been cultivating diligently all these years. His goal is to reunite with his family and protect those close to him. Integrating the heavenly Tao goes against the original intention of his cultivation. He should have waited in his heart. Since that's the case, what am I still worried about? Du Tingxian thought in his heart. Soon after, he no longer worried too much. He just stared blankly at the sky like everyone else. As Du Xiaofu's father, he knew his son very well. It was absolutely impossible for that kid to give up his loved ones for the temptation of being above the common people. If he had something in his heart, he would definitely not integrate the heavenly Tao. Therefore, he must have his own ideas in his heart and would definitely not act rashly. The truth was just as Du Tingxian thought. At this time, although Du Xiaofu's eyes were slightly closed, his heart was repeatedly conflicted. With the help of the complete law of lightning, he could pry into the most profound traces of Dharma and Logos in this world. Every inch of his skin, every pore, and every strand of his hair seemed to be able to touch the existence of the heavenly Tao. The heavenly Tao is really so mysterious. Du Xiaofu sighed continuously. His heart was shaken by everything he sensed. Waves of mysterious power began to madly pour into his mind. Countless scenes took shape. There was the rotation of the universe, the rise and fall of the sun and moon, and the evolution of all things in the world. There was wind, rain, thunder, lightning, water and fire mixing, and the birth of the mighty power of heaven and earth. There were living beings offering sacrifices, devout prayers, and vast amounts of wish power converging. Everything in the mortal world was included in these scenes, and there was nothing that could not be tolerated. Countless scenes, intense and spectacular, colliding and intertwining, were engraved with the texture and rules of all things in the world. These scenes contained some sort of indescribable and miraculous energy, and they seemed to explain the cycle of the heavens and the laws and order of the world. They fluctuated with a mysterious and vast aura, and it caused others to be unable to refrain from wanting to touch them and find out exactly what they were. As long as I want to, I'm afraid it will be easy to integrate the heavenly Tao at this time. Du Xiaofu secretly muttered to himself, constantly thinking. He could clearly feel the strange rhythm in the world. The trajectory of the heavenly Tao was traceless, but it was everywhere. It was so mysterious and unfathomable. At this moment, Du Xiaofu knew that as long as he wanted, he could activate the thunder martial vein. With the complete law of lightning, it represented the complete law of lightning, and merge with part of the traces of the heavenly Tao in the void. Then, he would merge with the whole world and obtain supreme power. With the body of the heavenly Tao, he would control the world. If that was the case, from then on, everything in the world would be under his control. Whether it was the evolution of the universe or the cycle of heavenly Tao, everything would be included, and everything would be a part of him. Under the influence of the invisible power of the laws, his strength would grow along with the expansion of this world. However, Du Xiaofu hesitated at this time. He was not willing to integrate the heavenly Tao, and he was not willing to walk the same path as his ancestor. However, this temptation was simply too great. If it were any other living creature, when faced with the supreme power at their fingertips, they would not be able to maintain their original beliefs. Although Du Xiaofu's cultivation was strong and his will was firm, after all, he had not transcended the shackles of heaven and earth. It was also difficult for him to avoid the temptation. But after all, he knew what happened to his ancestor. That kind of result was not what he wanted at all. Because of this, when faced with the temptation of the supreme power, he still retained some rationality. Chapter 2686. Du Xiaofu was hesitating. The temptation of merging with the heavenly way and obtaining supreme power was too great. It was hard to extricate oneself from it. Even Du Xiaofu, who had always had an incomparably firm mentality, could not resist such a huge temptation at this time. Thus, endless hesitation arose in his heart. Phew, high up in the sky, Du Xiaofu took a deep breath and then slowly exhaled. He slowly suppressed the emotions in his heart and began to calm down. Regardless of whether it was for the sake of his loved ones or for the sake of his own cultivation, he could not fuse with the heavenly Tao. If that was the case, he would lose the 7 emotions and 6 desires that he should have. It would be no different from dying. If one couldn't have selfish desires, if one couldn't pursue everything one wanted, what was the point of having supreme power? At this moment, Du Xiaofu's heart could not help but become clear. He instantly made a choice. Therefore, his perseverance and persistence became even more resolute. Even in the face of the endless temptation of power, he no longer felt greedy. He understood his own heart very well and knew what was the right choice for him to make. Although I can't merge with the heavenly way, I can still use this opportunity to take a good look at the most profound laws and principles of the world. This will be of great benefit to my strength. Du Xiaofu thought to himself as he let out a long sigh. Although he had decided to give up on merging with the heavenly way, with the help of the complete lightning law, he could still see through the thousands of profound patterns contained in the heavenly way. These profound patterns of the Great Way were the tracks that living beings needed to explore in their cultivation. If he could use this to comprehend it, it would bring unimaginable benefits to his cultivation level. This time, Du Xiaofu did not hesitate too much. He focused and connected his mind with the thunder martial vein. Then, he sensed the laws and order of the world. In his mind, the law imprint was glowing. Originally, only a part of the pattern was relatively complete. However, at this moment, the entire pattern was emitting a bright light, as if it was resonating with the peculiar rhythm between heaven and earth. In such a scene, Du Xiaofu closed his eyes and fell into an indescribable state. Every cell in his body was immersed in the veins evolved by the heavenly Tao, constantly comprehending the profoundness within. However, Du Xiaofu was also very clear about one thing. He could now use the thunder martial vein to see many heavenly Tao marks clearly, but he was still unable to truly grasp these mysterious trajectories. If he wanted to truly turn it into his own power, he could only take the path of fusing with the heavenly Tao. This situation was similar to when he was in the tomb of the heavenly Tao all those years ago. When he traveled down the river of time, only a mark was left behind. If he wanted to completely control these laws and principles, he would have to rely on years of cultivation and comprehension to completely fill the law imprint. It was like when he had fused with the 36 spiritual thunders, Huolei Laozu, and Lei Tianhuang's power, he had obtained the complete law of thunder and lightning. He had perfected it step by step, so that a part of the pattern on the law imprint was truly coherent and complete. But then again, if it were not for Huolei Laozu and Lei Tianhuang, if they had not found the remaining 28 spiritual thunders, if they had not sacrificed their lives and wiped out their spiritual intelligence to help Du Xiaofu perfect the law of thunder and lightning, it would have taken many years for Du Xiaofu to finally surpass the Sky Sage realm by relying on his own cultivation and comprehension. However, because of the existence of the law imprint, it was equivalent to laying a complete foundation for Du Xiaofu. Once he obtained the corresponding power or comprehension, he could easily complete it and reach the corresponding realm. The laws and principles of heaven and earth, the rules of the great Tao, the order of the world, these things are only a part of this world. Although they represent supreme power, they are still limited to this part of the world. Some different emotions rose in Du Xiaofu's mind as he constantly pondered about the mysterious principles of heaven and earth. All of a sudden, a spiritual light flashed in his spiritual platform, and a strange idea emerged. At this moment, Du Xiaofu suddenly recalled what he had seen and heard in the tomb of the heavenly Tao when he had returned to the upper reaches of time. When the ancestor had attacked the demon god, he had said some earth-shattering words. At this moment, that vast voice resounded in Du Xiaofu's ears. "I am the heavenly Tao, and I will protect the common people. Perhaps this is the true heavenly Tao. I don't want this heartless body of the heavenly Tao. Today, I will do what the heavenly Tao should do. Even if I turn into ashes, so what?" At that time, Du Xiaofu had been shocked by these words because he had suddenly understood the existence of the heavenly Tao. Later on, when he often thought about it, he still felt boundless emotions. However, he had never thought too deeply about the contents of these words that the ancestor had said. However, at this moment, Du Xiaofu suddenly had a kind of enlightenment. The heavenly Tao was supreme, selfless and heartless. To the ancestor, even if he was willing to be obliterated by the invisible rules, he could not bear to watch the demon god slaughter the common people. "I am the heavenly Tao, and I will protect the common people. Perhaps this is the true heavenly Tao." Clearly, when the ancestor had made the final choice, the body of the heavenly Tao that he understood should not be so heartless. At the very least, as the supreme existence of this world, when the common people of the world were suffering from external disasters, he should intervene and not turn a blind eye. Should the heavenly Tao really be a heartless body? Du Xiaofu's eyes were closed, but his brows couldn't help but slowly frown. The more he thought about it, the more Du Xiaofu felt that the idea of the seed was inconceivable. At the same time, it also had an extremely vast logic. Those words came from the mouth of the ancestor who had the body of the heavenly Tao. It was definitely not without reason. I am the heavenly Tao, and I will protect the common people. Perhaps, this was the true heavenly Tao. Shouldn't the existence of the heavenly Tao be based on the common people? If this world did not have the common people that filled every corner, wouldn't it be a land of death? Could such an existence still be called the heavenly Tao? Since there were already thousands of laws and orders that could evolve everything in this world, then what was the point of establishing a living being that had fused with the invisible rules as the heavenly Tao? Today, I will do what the heavenly Tao should do. Even if I turn into ashes, so what? These words kept echoing in Du Xiaofu's ears. He carefully tasted the true meaning contained within them. What was the heavenly Tao? What was it that he should do? In fact, the ancestor's words had already given him the answer. However, it was only today that Du Xiaofu truly came back to his senses. The heavenly Tao should have the common people as its thoughts, and it should have a heartless body. As the heavenly Tao of a world, if it can't protect its own people, then what's the use of having a body of the heavenly Tao? Du Xiaofu muttered to himself. After thinking about it carefully, an exceptionally terrifying thought surfaced in his mind. Was it the ancestor who had fused with the laws of the world and transformed into the heavenly Tao, or was it the laws of the world that had assimilated the ancestor and made it a part of the laws? This thought crazily surged in Du Xiaofu's mind. The more he thought about it, the more frightened Du Xiaofu became. Perhaps, after the ancestor had achieved the body of the heavenly Tao, he had also seen through this point. That was why he had said those words when he had suppressed the demon god. I understand. High in the sky, Du Xiaofu slowly opened his eyes. 2 rays of wisdom shot out from them. At this moment, he finally understood what kind of existence the heavenly Tao was. He was certain that the body of the heavenly Tao back then was not the true heavenly Tao. He was only a slave captured by the invisible laws. Through the ancestor's words, Du Xiaofu was certain that this was the truth. There was absolutely no falsehood. The true heavenly Tao was definitely built on the invisible laws and not restricted by them. Beyond the sky saint realm, one must have grasped at least one true meaning of the laws. And to fuse with the heavenly Tao like the ancestor, one must condense this complete true meaning of the laws with the laws of the world and become a part of it. In this way, one can borrow the power of the order of the heavenly Tao to do things that ordinary people cannot do. Du Xiaofu said softly. He had already understood this point earlier. However, at this moment, he had a deeper understanding of the laws of the heavenly Tao. However, the heavenly Tao is sublime. The heavenly Tao is incorporeal and formless. It cannot directly interfere with tangible things. Otherwise, it will trigger the rules of the heavenly Tao and be obliterated. Du Xiaofu sighed. He finally understood why the ancestor had been obliterated by the invisible laws when he had suppressed the demon god. Yes, he had understood the true meaning behind it. The evolution of the heavenly Tao into all things was a subtle evolution. It was the result of thousands of laws intertwining and not directly interfering with them. This was just like Du Xiaofu himself. As the rock emperor of the barren country, the most effective way to control all his people was to use his spirit to influence them and bring about the luck of the barren country. When he had fought the demon god alone and fought a bloody battle without retreating, the spirit of all living beings had reached a high level of unity and resonated with him. This was the result of the grand scene of the entire world worshipping him and the endless royal qi supporting him. It was also because of this that Du Xiaofu had reached the full circle of the heavenly saint realm in an instant. On the other hand, if he had relied on his own strength and the experts of the barren country, or if he had used his iron fist to suppress or force them, forcefully interfering with the beliefs of all living beings and forcing them to kneel and worship him in order to obtain the imperial palace's dragon chi, the result would have been the opposite of what he wanted. It would have been the biggest joke in the world. These two situations were the difference between inaction and action. It was because of this that the ancestor of the Du family, as the heavenly Tao, could not interfere with the affairs of the common people. Otherwise, he would trigger the invisible rules and be obliterated. If that's the case, then the heavenly Tao isn't that supreme. Since the ancestor was able to merge it, then there must be a way to control it. Du Xiaofu's eyes shone with a strange light. He could not help but feel excited at this thought and almost jumped for joy. The concept of controlling the heavenly Tao and merging with the heavenly Tao were worlds apart. Merging with the heavenly Tao meant that one would be restricted by the heavenly Tao and be restrained everywhere. One would become the so-called supreme, but in reality, one would not be able to interfere with everything in the world. If one could control it in one's hands, it would mean that one could turn it into one's own power and use it at will. However, if I want to truly control it, how should I do it? After his excitement, Du Xiaofu gradually calmed down and began to think calmly. The complete lightning law that he had mastered was a part of the heavenly Tao. If he wanted to merge with the heavenly Tao, then he would need to merge the lightning law with the complete heavenly Tao and merge them into one. As long as Du Xiaofu was willing, he could do it at any time. However, if he wanted to truly control it, it would not be so easy. This is troublesome. Du Xiaofu was in a difficult position and felt extremely helpless. The complete lightning law that he had mastered could only be achieved with the help of the spiritual thunder that his ancestor had turned into when he died. It could be said that his current strength did not have much of an advantage compared to his ancestor who had merged with the heavenly Tao. Therefore, it would be difficult for him to control the heavenly Tao. No matter what, I have to give it a try. Du Xiaofu narrowed his eyes and a sense of determination shot out from his heart. Since he had thought through these problems, there was no reason for him to shrink back. Today, let me try to seize the heavenly Tao and control it. These words came out of Du Xiaofu's mouth. He stood high in the sky and a dazzling purple gold light completely enveloped his body. Bolts of lightning constantly circled around him, making him look extremely domineering and majestic. This time, he did not close his eyes. Instead, he just stared at the boundless void. Following the fluctuation of the lightning martial vein, he could see the heavenly Tao's trajectory that was everywhere in the void, explaining thousands of mysterious and vast true meanings. Du Xiaofu reached out a hand and gently grasped in the void as if he had grabbed an invisible existence. At the same time, his palm emitted a blinding brilliance as if he was forcefully pulling something. It was just a simple action, but it instantly made Du Xiaofu's forehead sweat the size of beans. It was extremely strenuous. All of a sudden, his palm was directly bounced away as he was subjected to a huge repulsive force. It's very difficult to seize. Du Xiaofu gritted his teeth and withdrew his hand, panting heavily. According to his thinking, since he wanted to control the heavenly Tao, he had to seize the heavenly Tao's rules and place them in his body. It was the same principle as when living creatures placed external forces into their bodies during cultivation and refined them into their own strength. However, after a preliminary attempt, Du Xiaofu realized that the invisible rules could not be seized by force at all. Although he was not injured when he was rejected, it still consumed a lot of his energy. Don't rush, don't rush. Du Xiaofu silently muttered to himself, trying hard to calm his emotions. At the same time, his mind was racing as he kept thinking about many questions. In particular, the words that his ancestor had said kept echoing in his mind. He wanted to find bits and pieces of the true meaning from some clues and crack the secret of controlling the heavenly Tao. However, after tasting it countless times, he still could not comprehend any useful information from it. Du Xiaofu knew that the principles that he had comprehended should have been understood by his ancestor after he had merged with the heavenly Tao. It had to be said that his ancestor was indeed invincible back then and could be called a supreme being of a generation. In terms of aptitude, Du Xiaofu could only sigh. Perhaps he finally knew how to control the heavenly Tao, but it was too late. It seems that I can only rely on myself. Du Xiaofu sighed inwardly and gently closed his eyes again. Under his control, the huge lightning net in the sky continued to cover the entire sky of this realm, covering every nook and cranny of this realm. Du Xiaofu tried to use the thunder martial vein to trigger the tracks of the heavenly Tao's rules that were of the same origin. However, he did not dare to merge it with the invisible rules, fearing that it would cause irreversible consequences. By then, it would be too late to regret. As his mind calmed down, Du Xiaofu's thoughts also slowly calmed down, and his mind fell into a state of emptiness. Just like that, he stood high up in the sky, quietly experiencing and comprehending. The thunder martial vein was still triggering the invisible order of the rules, constantly changing the beginning, explaining the profound true meaning of the laws and principles. Below, many creatures were also watching with their eyes wide open, afraid that they would miss any detail. Time slowly passed. After more than 20 hours, Du Xiaofu's body, which was standing in the air, suddenly shook. Immediately after, his eyes opened with a swoosh and a brilliant light flashed out. I understand. Du Xiaofu's eyes lit up, and the corners of his mouth couldn't help but grin to his ears. He was extremely excited. I understand. I finally understand. So that's how it is. Ha 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 ha, he laughed loudly, and his loud voice spread between heaven and earth, causing all the creatures in the Kyushu realm of the 3 continents to hear it clearly. Although my ancestor had only merged with the heavenly Tao back then, it was definitely not a coincidence that he was able to achieve the body of the heavenly Tao. Only by thinking about the common people, embracing the world, and being magnanimous can one reach the highest and most profound realm and obtain the strongest power in this world. Du Xiaofu was so excited that he couldn't stop talking to himself. A series of words came out of his mouth. The heavenly Tao is formless, but its existence is based on the common people of the world. Otherwise, it would only be a rootless duckweed. Even if it had the supreme true meaning of the laws and principles, it would be useless. The heavenly Tao, there is the heavenly Tao before the Tao. And if you want to control the heavenly Tao, you have to first transform into the heavens. You have to be magnanimous and encompass all things. Only then can you seize the heavenly Tao. Chapter 2687. Du Xiaofu felt as if he had been enlightened, and he felt extremely carefree. Yes, after a long period of thinking, he finally understood the true meaning of the heavenly Tao and grasped the key point. What was the heavenly Tao? The heavenly Tao had the common people as its thoughts, its heart cherished the world, and its body contained all things. Was this not the reason why the heavenly Tao was above all living things? If it could not contain everything in this world with a broad mind, how could it be supreme? I am the heavenly Tao, and I shall protect all living things. Du Xiaofu muttered this sentence that his ancestor said when he suppressed the demon god. The more he thought about it, the more he felt that it contained an incomparably deep meaning. My previous understanding was not wrong. The heavenly Tao is indeed a kind of connection between heaven and man. It is an illusory existence. If you want to control it, you can't forcefully seize it. You can only rely on your own mind to sense it, reach a resonance with it, and then make it a part of you. Du Xiaofu suppressed his excitement and exhaled a long breath of turbid air. The heavenly Tao's rules were shapeless, unfathomable, and mysterious. However, the root of its existence was still inseparable from everything in this world. The meaning of its existence was to serve all living things in the world. If you want to control the heavenly Tao, you must contain all things in the world. Du Xiaofu closed his eyes once again. All the qi in his body was withdrawn, and he became extremely ordinary. High up in the sky, the thunder martial vein that covered the entire sky stopped evolving into a mystical pattern. The huge light net slowly shrank and became smaller. Finally, it returned to Du Xiaofu's body and disappeared from the surface of his body. Huff, 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 gusts of wind blew past and brushed Du Xiaofu's face. At the same time, it also moved the boundless black clouds that covered the entire world. The rolling black clouds were completely blown away. The sky became clear again, and the blue sky and the white sun reappeared. The pressure that suppressed the souls of all living things finally dissipated and disappeared into nothingness. Did Xiaofu comprehend something? Du Tingxian spoke softly above the stone city of the desolate country, as if he had sensed something. Many experts had gathered here. They had all gained something from the images that had appeared previously, and they were all overjoyed. However, at this moment, they weren't in the mood to comprehend the Dharma and Logos that they had comprehended. This was because everyone's attention was focused on Du Xiaofu, who was in midair. All of this started because of him. Now that such a change had occurred, all of the vast qi dissipated, but that young man still didn't do anything. He must have also obtained a great harvest. All the experts wanted to know what would happen next. However, at this moment, no one could tell what kind of state the young man was in. No one could see through the profundity. However, in their hearts, there was a faint trace of extreme anticipation. Under everyone's gaze, Du Xiaofu completely retracted his aura, and no one could sense any fluctuations from him. At this moment, he was in an extremely strange state. Even though the thunder martial vein had been retracted, he could still feel the Dharma and Logos between heaven and earth. Every inch of his skin and every pore on his body seemed to be touching something. Just like the qi on his body, Du Xiaofu's primordial spirit also remained silent. However, it was this state that made him feel as if he was in the natural world, and he had an inexplicable sense of affinity with everything in the world. A gentle breeze blew past Du Xiaofu's cheeks, as if a warm and soft hand was caressing him. This was an experience that he had never experienced before. It was as if some kind of invisible secret force was compatible with Du Xiaofu. Du Xiaofu's mind was empty, and all the miscellaneous thoughts of the past were thrown out of his mind. He only felt that the things he felt were constantly changing. At this moment, he seemed to have become the earth, bearing everything in the world. Then, he felt that he had become a towering mountain, standing tall in the world. Not long after, he seemed to have become a clear spring, flowing slowly. Or a blade of grass, swaying with the wind and spitting out dew. Sometimes, Du Xiaofu felt that he seemed to be an insect, chirping in the grass. Sometimes, he turned into a little bird, soaring between heaven and earth. Countless changes, countless different experiences, constantly changed in Du Xiaofu's heart. The sun rose and the moon set, and light and darkness constantly alternated. In this state, Du Xiaofu could not sense the passage of time at all. He was just using his heart to experience everything. His body stood in the air, looking ordinary and unremarkable. Below, countless people also stopped to watch. However, gradually, many people began to lose their patience. It's already been 3 days. What exactly is he comprehending? In the sky above the stone city, Jialo Batian said doubtfully. In fact, he was not the only one. Everyone had the same question in their hearts. If Du Xiaofu made a certain amount of noise, they might be able to find out a thing or two from it. But now, standing motionless in the sky, they had no way of knowing what he was going through. And no one dared to disturb Du Xiaofu, for fear of affecting him. Xiaofu doesn't seem to be integrating with the heavenly Tao. It looks more like he's experiencing something. Du Tingxian said in a timely manner. The patterns evolved from the thunder martial veins that had appeared in the sky before showed that Du Xiaofu had already comprehended some profound traces of Dharma and Logos. It was also at that time that Du Tingxian was worried that he would be like the ancestors of the Du family, choosing to integrate with the heavenly Tao after his cultivation had surpassed the sky saint realm. If that was really the case, it was not something that Du Tingxian wanted to see. However, as Du Xiaofu's father, Du Tingxian knew his son very well. He knew that his son would have confidence in himself and would know how to weigh the pros and cons. Therefore, he gradually let go of the worry in his heart. But now, all of the lightning and dark clouds in the sky had disappeared, and it had been 3 whole days since they had last appeared. However, Du Xiaofu was still standing in mid-air and did not make any other movements. It was as if he had fallen into a deep sleep, and no one could see what kind of state he was in. This made Du Tingxian more and more puzzled. "Grandfather, let's go back first. I'm afraid that father will spend a lot of time to get out of this state," little Xingxing said in the crowd. In this world, other than Du Xiaofu, little Xingxing was the strongest. She could sense Du Xiaofu's current situation more clearly than anyone else. This kid has just woken up. He hasn't even had the time to say a word, and he's already caused such a commotion. I really don't know what he's trying to do. Sacred Array child Jin Qingchun chuckled and said. After Du Xiaofu had died in the Great Calamity, he had been placed in a stone coffin. Later on, with the help of the 4 members of the Beigong family, he had truly recovered and awakened a few days ago. Everyone in the desolate country and those who were on good terms with the desolate country were pleasantly surprised. However, no one had expected that the guy would cause such a huge commotion as soon as he recovered, alarming all the living beings in this world. At this time, all the strange phenomena had disappeared, and countless living beings had recovered from their initial shock. However, Du Xiaofu was still very mysterious. It was as if he had stayed in mid-air and did not want to come down. "Let's retreat first. Let the boss stay there by himself. I've gained a lot of insight from those diagrams, and I need to properly comprehend them." Du Xiaoyao's eyes shone with a golden light. After saying that, his figure flashed and he disappeared from where he stood. "Let's go." Many experts took another look at Du Xiaofu's figure, then followed Du Xiaoyao's actions, and all of them landed in the stone city. This time, all the forces in the 3 continents and Kyushu who were on good terms with the desolate country had come in large numbers. They wanted to have a chat with Du Xiaofu when he woke up and congratulate him. However, looking at the scene before their eyes, it seemed that they would have to wait for a few more days. At the same time, everyone was extremely shocked in their hearts. After Du Xiaofu experienced this, he would probably reach a height that ordinary people could not imagine. Everyone couldn't help but sigh with emotion at this. That young man had already brought them far too much shock. As there were just too many experts who had come to the desolate country this time, even with the size of the palace, it was unable to arrange accommodations for so many experts. However, many of them had gained some insight earlier, and now they needed to find a quiet place to properly digest it. This put Du Tingxian, Yi Wuming, and the others in a difficult position. However, the people who came were very self-aware. They expressed that they would find a place to cultivate within the desolate country and would not cause trouble for others. As such, it did not take long for most of them to leave the palace. Some of them found a place to stay in the stone city, but even more of them went to the areas around the stone city. Only the golden-winged great rocks, the ancient heaven sect, and the school of agriculture remained in the palace. As time passed, day after day, night after night, Du Xiaofu remained in that strange state. It was as if he was in the world and had become one with it. It was also as if he was constantly changing, becoming everything in the world. All of this faintly resonated with the laws of the heavenly Tao in the unseen world. Close to 3 months silently passed under these circumstances. It was another clear day. Due to Du Xiaofu's rebirth and awakening, the Kyushu region of the 3 continents had calmed down once again. However, on this day, the situation was broken once again. This was because on a day like this, an indescribable feeling rose up in the hearts of all the living beings in the world at the same time. At first, everyone thought that it was just a hallucination, so they did not take it to heart. However, as this situation continued, some people gradually understood that it was not a hallucination but a genuine feeling. Very soon, everyone in the Kyushu region of the 3 continents, from the experts with exceptional cultivation to the ordinary people and beasts without cultivation, were shocked by what they were feeling. Intense discussions erupted. What's going on? Why do I feel like my soul is throbbing and the blood in my body is flowing faster? I have a similar feeling. It's like there's an ancient grand soul hidden in my body that's awakening. My blood is boiling as if I've broken free from some sort of shackle. I can't help but want to roar. This feeling is too great. I've never experienced it before. It's like some sort of shackle on my body has been broken. This can't be a baseless rumor. There's definitely a source, but I don't know where it's coming from. After the calamity of the devil religion, strange things have happened one after another, each time so inconceivable. Many living beings couldn't help but speak one after another, discussing their own feelings with unclear emotions. When it came to the calamity of the devil religion, everyone was stunned for a moment before looking in the direction of the desolate kingdom. At this moment, everyone had the same thought. Could it be that this mysterious feeling is caused by the Rock Emperor? Some of the living beings voiced their thoughts. Even though they were very doubtful, this sentence actually entered the hearts of everyone present. After the calamity of the devil religion, there were several anomalies that appeared one after another, all of which were inseparable from the Rock Emperor. This time, after a round of discussion, everyone naturally thought of him again. Perhaps in this world, only that young man had the ability to cause such a large-scale effect. Do you feel it? The suppression between heaven and earth seems to have weakened a bit. In the palace of the desolate kingdom, Du Tingshuan's gaze swept across the people around him. He then raised his head and stared at Du Xiaofu in the sky. At this moment, Du Yunlong, Little Xingxing, Du Xiaoyao, Zhen Qingchun, Jialo Batian, Sima Taxing, and the others had already gathered together. Like all the other living beings, they also had the same strange feeling. A simple comic version of Martial God's World is out. Little Yu has a few copies now, but there aren't many. After a while, he will bring more. When the time comes, he will organize a small event for everyone. Readers, please add Little Yu's WeChat public account, UPhoneYF. Remember, it's the account UPhoneYF. When the time comes, Little Yu will select some readers to send comics, beards, and other peripheral products, such as t-shirts, cups, and so on. Thank you for your continued support. With the strength of these people, they could even sense it more deeply than most of the other living beings. That's indeed the case. Although this weakening is difficult to detect, it really exists. The others all nodded, indicating that they had sensed the same thing as Du Tingxian. The people present were all extremely powerful. With their cultivation, they could already break through the void and enter the 33 heavens. Therefore, many subtle changes between heaven and earth could not escape their prying eyes. Just like now, some small changes between heaven and earth could still be sensed by everyone. Everyone from the 33 heavens has said that this world is a little special and is suppressed by the power of heaven and earth. The living beings here can only reach the heavenly saint realm at most. They have to go to the outside world to have a chance to step into a higher realm. However, no one can say for sure why all of this is happening. Even existences like the Lord of the 3,000 Worlds and the Dragon God have to be restrained. Sacred Array Child Zhen Qingchun frowned slightly and said. In fact, he was not the only one who did not understand this. Everyone had similar doubts. This world was truly too special. It was much more powerful than the other small worlds. However, compared to the 33 heavens, it was greatly restricted. However, whether it was Fuibai's group of 5, the young experts of the Beigong clan, the ancestor of the Skywood Divine Tree, or other people from the outside world, none of them could clearly explain the reason. However, everyone knew that all of this was probably caused by the suppression of heaven and earth. The weakening of the suppression must be related to Boss. Could it be that he has fused with the heavenly Tao like the ancestor of the Du family, thus affecting the overall situation of this world? Du Xiaoyao looked up at the sky and guessed. Everyone's actions were the same as him. They all looked up at Du Xiaofu in the sky. At this moment, the young man was no longer as calm as before. Some changes had occurred. Fusing with the heavenly Tao shouldn't be possible. He must have weighed the pros and cons in his heart. He knows the consequences of doing so. Du Tingxian said softly. However, at this moment, he was somewhat uncertain. After all, no one could truly understand Du Xiaofu's current state. Dad is clearly standing there, but why can't I sense him when I close my eyes? Du Xiaolin stretched out his two front hooves and rubbed his bright eyes in bewilderment. It's really like that. I can't sense Uncle Xiaofu's existence with the power of my soul. It's as if there's nothing in the space he's in. There's only the boundless void. Du Xiaoba exclaimed in bewilderment. When the others heard this, they all imitated the actions of the two little fellows. Could it be that they all sensed the same result? In the perception of their primordial spirits, Du Xiaofu seemed to have become one with the entire void and was in perfect harmony. Even with the powerful cultivation of everyone present, they were unable to detect his presence. If it were not for the fact that they could still see the figure standing in the void with their eyes, they would almost suspect that Du Xiaofu had disappeared from there. This situation caused everyone to be extremely puzzled. Let's wait and see. That kid will definitely give us a big surprise this time. Jello Badian said, a smile appearing on his aged face. Then, under everyone's gazes, Du Xiaofu's body once again underwent a strange change. The figure that was originally standing in midair suddenly slowly changed, becoming more and more illusory until it finally disappeared. Such a scene caused everyone's mouths to drop open in an instant. This time, not only was the power of the soul unable to sense his existence, but even the naked eye could not see his figure. But things did not end there. The moment Du Xiaofu's figure disappeared, an inexplicable fluctuation suddenly began to spread out in the world. A cool breeze appeared out of thin air, blowing between the heavens and the earth. In the eastern sky, the scorching sun hung overhead. Pure white clouds floated in the sky, creating a clear and beautiful scenery. On the other hand, the sky in the west suddenly darkened. Half of the sky turned gray as if night had suddenly fallen. In the night sky, a bright moon hung high in the sky. Countless stars dotted it, twinkling like playful children blinking their eyes. Chapter 2689. The scorching sun in the east and the bright moon in the west, splitting the sky of this realm into two from the middle. The point of contact between the two was a bright line from south to north. However, these lines exuded a vast masculine aura and a deep feminine aura at the same time. Two completely opposite forces coexisted on the same line, blending the characteristics of the east and the west, but there was no conflict at all. Under the division of this line, the two different types of energy maintained a relative balance, each occupying half of the sky. The Rock Emperor's figure has disappeared, and a strange phenomenon has appeared. What's going on? The appearance of such a strange phenomenon immediately caused many beings in the Kyushu realm of the three continents to cry out. All the living beings in this realm were shaken once more. No one, including the many experts in the desolate country, knew what this meant. However, everyone could feel that at this moment, their blood was boiling even more intensely. The suppression between heaven and earth has decreased a little. My cultivation is increasing. Du Xiaoba suddenly shouted, his little face filled with excitement. Ever since Du Xiaoba had stepped into the half-step heavenly saint realm in the space between the clouds where there was no suppression, it was more difficult than ascending to the heavens for him to take another step forward. However, at this moment, following the mysterious phenomenon between heaven and earth, he actually felt that his strength had increased slightly. And this was precisely because the suppressive force had weakened. Du Xiaoba was not the only one. Du Xiaohuang, Du Xiaolin, Zhen Qingchen, Du Tingxian, Jialo Jueyu, Yi Piaoling, Du Xiaojing, Xian Guyu, and the others also felt the same. Moreover, even little Xingxing, a heavenly saint powerhouse, could feel the increase in his strength. What kind of magnificent feat did Father do to actually cause the suppressive force between the heavens and earth to change? Little Xingxing's eyes flashed. While he was shocked, he was also even more confused. The suppression of heaven and earth in this world had existed since ancient times, and all living beings had long been accustomed to it. It was also because the heavenly Tao had taken action to suppress the demon god in ancient times and laid down an unparalleled great formation that gathered all the origin power of this realm, causing the suppression to become even stronger. It became impossible for living beings to break through to the saint realm. However, after the opening of the tomb of the heavenly Tao, everything returned to normal. The living beings could once again step into the saint realm. However, if they wanted to be like the living beings of the 33 heavens and reach a higher level, it was still impossible. This was because even the Lord of the 3,000 sectors and the Dragon God, the two supreme powerhouses, could only follow the rules of this realm after coming to this realm. Otherwise, with their strength, it was impossible for them to not be able to suppress the demon god. However, at this moment, this situation that had existed since ancient times seemed to be disappearing. Let's wait and see. When Xiaofu appears again, we must ask him what's going on. Jialo Batian was so excited that his face was trembling, unable to hide his excitement. There was no doubt that all of this must have been caused by Du Xiaofu. He really didn't know what that kid had comprehended to be able to cause the power of heaven and earth to change. Everyone stopped talking and stared at the sky. On the east and west, two completely opposite scenes were displayed between heaven and earth at the same time, as if maintaining a delicate balance. However, this balance didn't last for long and was eventually broken. Rumble, suddenly, there was a loud rumble, and a thunderous sound came from above the ninth heaven. As this loud sound reverberated, the sky on both sides moved at the same time, extending toward each other. The clear sky and the pitch-black night intertwined and collided, pushing each other away as if trying to invade each other's domain. However, the power of both sides was too vast. Terrifying forces spilled out and constantly squeezed toward each other, but neither could occupy the other's domain at all. Under the crushing force of that unparalleled force, the boundary between the two constantly changed shape and began to distort and deform. In the middle, the bright and deep line was being squeezed and deformed, but it firmly fixed the two sides in the area. Rumble, the sun and the moon moved at the same time, and heaven and earth shook as a terrifying aura burst out. The clear and dark heavens on both sides seemed to have their own consciousness, and they kept invading each other's domains. In the south, the power of the light side pushed and squeezed crazily, causing the edges of the gloomy sky to cave in. In the north, it was the exact opposite. The gloomy sky was pressed against the line in the middle, creating a large gap in the bright sky. Amidst this scene, the two forces pushed each other as if they had turned into a hole, and they began to slowly rotate. Rumble, the loud sound was like rolling thunder, resounding in the sky and on the ground. As time continued to pass, the forces on both sides, which occupied half of the sky, rotated faster and faster. On the other hand, the bright line in the middle had opposite depressions on both ends and was being pushed. Before long, the scene high in the sky changed positions. The bright sky turned from the east to the west, and the dark sky turned from the west to the east. Even so, the scenes on both sides did not stop there. Instead, they seemed to be moving faster and faster. Taiji diagram, it's a Taiji diagram. Looking at this scene, a living being exclaimed loudly. In fact, there was no need for anyone to remind them. Everyone could already see that a Taiji diagram had formed in the sky. On one side, the blue sky and the white sun were the yang fish, while on the other side, the dark moon was the yin fish. Under the separation of the bright and deep line in the middle, they were constantly rotating. As for that line, it acted as the yin and yang dividing line. Under everyone's gazes, the Taiji diagram spun rapidly, faster and faster until it turned into a blurry shadow. Among them, the sun, moon, stars, and the appearance of the bright and dark sky could no longer be seen clearly. The entire sky had become chaotic, hazy and deep. However, the miraculous thing was that as the Taiji diagram spun faster and faster, the blurry scene slowly became clear again. Half of the light and half of the darkness were separated by the yin and yang dividing line again. They were divided into two sides, and it looked like they were slowly rotating. However, many people knew that in reality, not only had the Taiji diagram not slowed down, but it had also become faster and faster, which was why such a scene had appeared. It was precisely because of this that at a glance, the scene in the sky seemed to have gradually stopped. It was just an illusion. Look, the positions of the sun and the moon have swapped with each other. A creature suddenly cried out loudly, using his finger to point at the sky, as if he had seen something terrifying. Many people looked up and saw a strange scene. Countless stars adorned the gloomy sky, but what they set off was no longer the bright moon from before. Instead, there was a blazing ball of light that was entrenched in the sky, releasing a bright light. On the contrary, in the clear half of the sky, the full moon hung in the sky like a silver plate. However, it was not bright in the blue sky. Instead, it looked very dark, like a deep divine abyss. How can there be a scorching sun in the dark night? How can there be a dark moon in the blue sky? An expert cried out, his heart filled with disbelief. Everyone knew that the sun could only be seen during the day, and the moon could only be seen at night. Even during the alternating hours of dawn and dusk, the sun and moon could not be under the same sky. These were two completely opposite attributes, representing the difference between yang and yin. There's nothing to be shocked about anymore. The scene of the day and night appearing together has already happened. If something unbelievable were to happen again, I wouldn't be more shocked. Someone else said, as if they had already become numb to the events that had happened today. Hearing this, many people nodded in agreement, expressing that they felt the same way. Du Xiaofu had already created far too many inconceivable things for the world. Even though this was the first time they had seen such a scene, many people gradually calmed down. Of course, there were people who were shocked, but under the increasing shock, they could only become numb. The manifestation of yin and yang, the switching of the sun and moon. This scene is a miracle. In the desolate country, Qi Xinglang of the school of yin and yang said in a daze. He came from the school of yin and yang, and the method he cultivated was to explore the principles of yin and yang between heaven and earth, borrowing the power of the sun, moon, and stars to cultivate. However, even among the main clans in the upper realm, no one could cause a scene like Du Xiaofu's. Day and night in the sky, the switching of the sun and moon, and the manifestation of yin and yang, this was indeed a miracle. In this realm, all living beings widened their eyes as they watched this scene that they had not seen in 10,000 years. They were all waiting quietly, waiting for the great rock emperor to reappear. When that time came, he would probably go to an extremely terrifying place and obtain endless benefits. In the void, although Du Xiaofu's body had disappeared, his consciousness still existed. He could feel that his body seemed to have turned into the most primitive yin and yang qi under the influence of the power of yin and yang, existing between heaven and earth. This included his primordial spirit, which had spread out and encompassed the entire realm. Tai Chi means that before heaven and earth were separated, vitality was mixed into one, which is the beginning. Therefore, Yi has Tai Chi, giving birth to yin and yang, forming the five elements, and giving birth to all things. In the void, Du Xiaofu muttered to himself. Many people knew and understood the meaning of this sentence. Everything in the world was divided by yin and yang, which was why there was a saying like yin alone does not give birth, yang alone does not grow. Without yang, yin cannot be born, and without yin, yang cannot be transformed. Yin and yang are the path of heaven and earth, the outline of all things, the parents of change, the origin of life and death, and the abode of the gods. The invisible rules contained in the heavenly axiom were part of heaven and earth, and were naturally formed by yin and yang. The path of heaven and earth uses yin and yang to create all things. Heaven and earth, the sun and moon, thunder and lightning, wind and rain, male and female, hard and soft, movement and stillness. All things are divided into yin and yang. The principle of life uses yin and yang to nourish the bones, meridians, bones, flesh, abdomen, back, 5 internal organs, 6 bowels, and even 7 damages and 8 benefits. Everything in one's body is in accordance with the principles of yin and yang. Man is related to heaven and earth, and corresponds to the sun and moon. The information of one body is connected to heaven and earth, and should be applied to all things. Du Xiaofu muttered silently, deeply understanding the meaning of these words. Yin and yang are the principles of heaven and earth. At this moment, Du Xiaofu's consciousness seemed to have gently exhaled. Ever since he saw through the foundation of the heavenly axiom, he wanted to control it in his hands, and not merge it. The method of control was to use one's body to encompass all things, including all existences in heaven and earth. In nearly 3 months, he felt that he was constantly changing, becoming a flower, a tree, a dust, a stone, a water, and a mist in this world. Only in this way could he truly understand what kind of existence all things were. In this process, Du Xiaofu was all things in heaven and earth, and at the same time, he also felt that all things in heaven and earth were him. After experiencing this understanding, Du Xiaofu's heart was like a mirror, reaching an extremely clear state. To control the heavenly axiom, what one needs to control is not the formless rules, nor is it the laws of yin and yang. Instead, one needs to merge oneself with all things, and achieve resonance. Du Xiaofu thought softly, and his mind was constantly turning. The so-called heavenly axiom contained thousands of rules and order, and was also a part of heaven and earth. Because of the existence of the heavenly axiom, the sun rose and the moon fell, the tide rose, and all things evolved. From this point of view, the order of the heavenly axiom was an existence that opposed all tangible things in the world, and belonged to yin and yang. If one simply wanted to control the heavenly axiom, it was absolutely impossible to seize the rules of the heavenly axiom. Only by placing oneself between heaven and earth, and at the same time transforming into all things, and triggering the formless power of the rules, and putting oneself in a mysterious state, and at the same time transforming into all things, was also the formless heavenly axiom. In this way, one could truly have the same sound and rhythm as the greater world. The so-called control of the heavenly axiom is so simple. Imperceptibly, Du Xiaofu seemed to be smiling. After he woke up and recovered from the stone coffin, he had countless hesitations and indecisiveness. Faced with the temptation of merging with the heavenly axiom and obtaining supreme power, it was difficult to make a choice. However, in the end, by triggering the formless rules of the heavenly axiom, in addition to various other kinds of understanding, he finally saw through the true meaning of the heavenly axiom. It was only at this time that he had the complete confidence to control the heavenly axiom, and not merge with the formless rules like his ancestors. This kind of joyful mood spread and affected all the living beings in this realm. Suddenly, everyone seemed to have encountered a joyous occasion, and their mood was incomparably joyous. Even the countless flowers and trees rooted in the earth became brighter at this moment. What a strange feeling! In the stone city of the desolate country, Du Tingxian, Du Xiaoyao, and the others were all amazed. Although they did not know where this feeling came from, they could not help but be curious. Everyone stared at the miraculous scene in the sky. While they felt happy, they also hoped to see Du Xiaofu appear. This scene did not last for long. In the end, the Taiji diagram that covered the entire sky of this world spun faster and faster. However, to the naked eye, it seemed to have stopped, and there was no movement at all. High in the sky, the scorching sun was still emitting a bright light in the night sky. The silver moon was also hanging high in the sky, dark and deep. Buzz, at this moment, a strange fluctuation rippled out, and everyone could clearly sense it. It was also at this moment that the yin-yang division line suddenly shone brightly, and it was countless times brighter than the light emitted by a thunderbolt explosion. Then, in front of everyone's eyes, the two ends of the yin-yang separation line seemed to have been ignited. Two flames, one red and one black, lit up respectively. Then, the entire yin-yang division line seemed to have turned into a fuse of gunpowder. It began to burn from both ends and quickly moved towards the middle, where a red and a black ball of light appeared. In the end, the two balls of light finally met in the middle and merged with each other. Swoosh, the red and black balls collided, and a ray of light flashed out and quickly disappeared. In the next moment, the figure of a young man appeared from within and slowly descended from the sky. Xiaofu. Father. Brother. Rock Emperor. Seeing that Du Xiaofu had finally appeared, countless experts were pleasantly surprised. Since he had already appeared and was walking towards the crowd, needless to say, all the changes should be coming to an end now. This kid, I wonder what kind of benefits he got from causing such a big commotion this time. We must interrogate him properly later. It's too curious. In the desolate country, many people also flew up into the sky and headed towards Du Xiaofu. However, behind the young man, the Tai Chi diagram was still spread out in the boundless void. Strangely, the yin-yang division line in the middle had already disappeared, but there were no violent collisions between the two opposing forces. This made many people feel bewildered. Long time no see. Du Xiaofu chuckled as he walked down from the sky and greeted the experts with a smile. However, when he saw that some people were staring behind him, Du Xiaofu could not help but chuckle again. Oh, right. Then, he turned around and waved his arm gently. The Tai Chi diagram that occupied the entire sky began to change. Chi Chi Chi, the dark night that occupied half of the sky, which represented the yin attribute, began to move. It moved horizontally towards Qin Tian's territory, directly pushing the other party to move. This scene looked as if the dark night was carrying the stars in the sky, constantly devouring the light. Only the silver moon did not move. In the end, it was enveloped by the dark night. In the end, the vast and boundless night gradually enveloped the land. The sun was pushed out by the curtain of night and disappeared into the boundless night. Chapter 2690. Translator, H2DH2 Mr. Du Xiaofu waved his hand, and the scenery between heaven and earth changed rapidly, returning to its original state. It had been several hours since the day and night had appeared, and the sun and moon had appeared in the sky at the same time. At this moment, it was deep into the night. The curtain of night shrouded the earth, and a bright moon hung overhead. Rays of clear light poured down, illuminating the world. The stone city of the Huang country seemed to be draped with a layer of silver gauze, hazy with a mysterious glow. Du Xiaofu stepped down from the sky and quickly landed on the ground. He gathered with Du Tingxian, Du Xiaoyao, Ouyang Shuang, Little Xingxing, Qi Yeshi, Han Aodong, and the others. Xiaofu. Brother. Father. Many strong fighters swarmed forward, surrounding Du Xiaofu in the center. There seemed to be some sparkling light brewing in everyone's eyes. My good grandson, you've finally come back to life. The old lady, Garuda Maluo, stepped forward, her withered hands stroking Du Xiaofu's face. Tears of excitement flowed from her old and slightly cloudy eyes. Although it had been almost 3 months since Du Xiaofu's complete rebirth, he had caused a commotion. However, ever since he had appeared, he had caused a commotion. This was the first time he had truly stood in front of the old lady. Therefore, seeing her grandson standing in front of her now, how could she not be happy to the point of tears? Grandma, I've been unfilial. I've made you worry. Du Xiaofu gently hugged the old lady and said with a smile. Xiaofu. Mother Han Aodong also cried uncontrollably. She pulled her son into her arms, unwilling to let go for a long time. Mother, it's okay. I'm back. Du Xiaofu comforted her. Drunkard father. Sister. Yi Lao. Brother Qing Chun. Grandfather. Uncle. Second uncle. Du Xiaofu smiled and greeted everyone one by one. Looking at everyone's expressions, they were all moved to tears. At this moment, not only were the others emotional, even Du Xiaofu himself was on the verge of bursting into tears. Sorry for making everyone worry. Looking at the familiar faces in front of him, Du Xiaofu felt as if a lifetime had passed. In reality, he had indeed experienced a life and death situation. This was not fake. If it weren't for the means left behind by his ancestors, he wouldn't have been able to come back to life. When he was fighting the demon god and burning his own law origins, Du Xiaofu had already prepared himself for death. Who would have thought that he would come back to life in the end? Life was just so unpredictable. Therefore, it could be said that his experience was indeed a life and death separation from many of his loved ones. Dad, I want a hug. The little Qilin jumped out from Ouyang Shuang's shoulder and directly jumped into Du Xiaofu's embrace. Its two front hooves hugged onto Du Xiaofu's neck as it kept rubbing its face intimately. Come, let's go home. Du Xiaofu restrained his emotions. Holding the little Qilin in his left hand and Du Xiaohuang in his right, he walked towards a large hall in the palace. Great, we're finally reunited. First uncle Du Zhixiong and second uncle Du Zhenwu were overjoyed and followed closely behind. A large group of people took their seats in the hall. Everyone's emotions had finally calmed down, but it was inevitable that they were still excited. Everyone present was either a member of the desolate country or an expert who had deep connections with the desolate country. After Du Xiaofu recovered, they naturally had a lot to say to him. Kid, you've caused such a big scene this time. What's going on? Hurry up and tell us. Jello Batian did not hide his curiosity at all and directly asked Du Xiaofu. Hearing such a question, the others naturally turned their eyes to Du Xiaofu. Everyone wanted to know what he had gained in the past 3 months. Actually, after I woke up, I had a vague feeling and spied on the invisible heavenly way precepts to see what kind of existence it was. Du Xiaofu did not hide anything and said so. Xiaofu, did you merge with the heavenly way? Du Tingshuan's mind was instantly raised and he asked in a panic. He knew that once he controlled the heavenly way, he would be able to possess supreme power. No one in this world would be able to defeat him. Even if the Lord of the 3,000 great thousand worlds and the Dragon God were here, they would still be restricted. However, deep in his heart, he really did not want Du Xiaofu to merge with the heavenly way. When the others heard this, they could not help but be stunned. They all knew what kind of restrictions one would face if they merged with the heavenly way. If he did so, then there would be no rock emperor in this world, who fought without regard for his own life. There would only be a ruthless and cold-blooded incarnation of the heavenly way. Not to mention Du Xiaofu's current achievements, even if it were them, there were probably not many who would be willing to try. Therefore, such an outcome should be something that the living beings of this world did not want to see. Don't worry, Dad, I didn't merge with the heavenly way. Du Xiaofu smiled and said to Du Tingxian. At the same time, he cast a reassuring glance at the others. Phew. That scared me to death. It's good that you didn't. It's fine if you don't want that supreme power. Even if you merged with the heavenly way, you're just a puppet of invisible rules and will be restrained in every way. That's right. What's the use of having such great power if you can't use it for yourself? The group of experts began to talk at once, and at the same time, they heaved a sigh of relief in their hearts. And just as these people were making a racket, Du Xiaofu softly said another sentence that rang in everyone's ears, causing them to be stunned in an instant. They were all petrified like clay sculptures. I only controlled the heavenly way. Du Xiaofu said casually, smiling as he swept his gaze over everyone's expressions. It was truly endlessly fascinating. Their eyes were wide open, and their mouths seemed to be able to stuff an elephant in. It was indescribably comical. No. It can't be. After a long while, Du Xiaoyao was the first to speak, extremely incredulous. Control means that you can mobilize the power of the heavenly way, but you won't be restrained by the rules of the heavenly way. Is that so? Zhen Qingchun could not help but ask doubtfully. Actually, his understanding of Du Xiaofu's meaning was not wrong, but he was extremely uncertain in his heart, so he wanted to confirm it. In fact, it was not only Zhen Qingchun. At this moment, the others were also looking at Du Xiaofu with burning eyes, wanting to hear his specific answer. Brother Qingchun, you're right. Du Xiaofu still had a smile on his face as he nodded. However, when these words came out, it immediately caused the entire hall to seethe with excitement. Damn, that's also possible. Boss, you're too awesome. Controlling the heavenly way, that's controlling, not merging. This is simply too unbelievable. Something that even the ancestors of the Du family could not achieve was actually done by Xiaofu. Abnormal, too abnormal. Controlling the heavenly way, controlling the power of this world. In the future, Dad will not only be the Rock Emperor of the desolate country, but also the Rock Emperor of this world. He was originally the Rock Emperor of this world, but after controlling the invisible rules of the heavenly way, this title is even more true to his name. In the future, even if a powerhouse like the demon god comes to this world, he won't be able to cause any trouble. That's right, with Xiaofu around, he can kill such a powerhouse with a flip of his hand. Everyone was extremely excited, as they all had some understanding of the existence of the heavenly way. Even the ancestors of the Du family, who were extremely talented, were unable to control the heavenly way, but Du Xiaofu had done it. With such supreme power, if they had to face a situation similar to the great calamity of the devil religion again, there would be no more misery and suffering like in the past. Even existences like the Lord of the 3,000 sectors and the Dragon God had to be suppressed by the invisible rules when they came to this world. It was clear how powerful the power of this world was. Everyone, don't get too excited. Controlling the heavenly way doesn't mean that you won't die. Du Xiaofu suddenly spoke, causing the entire hall to fall silent. Everyone was quietly waiting for him to continue. I have a feeling that if some people come to this world, they won't be suppressed by the rules of the heavenly way, but I can't say for sure what kind of people they are. I only have a vague feeling. He frowned slightly and said slowly, so, it's not that no one can threaten the safety of this world. Could it be that there's someone stronger than the Lord of the 3,000 sectors and the Dragon God? Du Tingxian asked, somewhat bewildered. Everyone believed that the Lord of the 3,000 sectors and the Dragon God were supreme powerhouses, and that no one should be stronger than them. However, if there was someone who wasn't suppressed by the power of the heavenly way and thus posed a threat to Du Xiaofu, who controlled the heavenly way, then their strength must be even more terrifying than those two. When he heard Du Tingxuan's question, Du Xiaofu couldn't help but shake his head. He then glanced at Little Star and said, I don't know how strong the Lord of the 3,000 sectors and the Dragon God are. However, I have a feeling that being able to threaten me doesn't have much to do with the strength of their strength. This. Everyone looked at each other, feeling very puzzled. However, when they thought about it, they understood. After all, the 33 heavens was so vast, there were many things that they still didn't understand with their current strength. Xiaofu, there's something that I'm afraid you still don't know. Du Tingxian didn't think too much about the previous question. Instead, he told them about Du Xiaofu's death during the great calamity of the devil religion, how the demon god had been resurrected, and how Jiang Chen had suddenly appeared. Jiang Chen. He's the one who devoured the demon god's nascent spirit. Du Xiaofu was so shocked that he couldn't be any more shocked. This shock was no small matter. Ever since his resurrection, this was the first time he'd come into contact with anyone. He knew nothing about what had happened after his death. Now that he heard Du Tingxian mention it, his heart was filled with shock. After that, Du Tingxian and the others told Du Xiaofu everything they'd heard from the Skywood Divine Tree ancestor. But no matter how they thought about it, they couldn't figure out the crux of the matter. As for Jiang Chen's origins, I'm also unable to figure it out. I'm sure that once we go to the outside world, we'll slowly come to understand. Du Xiaofu sighed. Although his friendship with Jiang Chen wasn't shallow, there were many things that he didn't know. Moreover, even Jiang Chen himself had been trying to figure out Jiang Chen's origins. However, he didn't know whether or not Jiang Chen had remembered something before he'd killed the demon god. Father, we can all sense that the suppression of this world has weakened. Although it's very subtle, it's still a change. Does this have anything to do with you? Little Xingxing looked up at Du Xiaofu with her bright eyes. It wasn't just little Xingxing. Many other experts could clearly sense this. Although compared to before, the change was not particularly great, but there was indeed a trend of weakening. As a result, everyone was very curious as to whether or not all of this had originated from Du Xiaofu. This matter arose because of me, but it wasn't my doing. Although I control the power of the heavenly Tao, I don't have the ability to change the invisible laws. Du Xiaofu nodded and explained, in the process of controlling the heavenly Tao, I personally experienced many things. It seems that this world has always been suppressed by someone, rather than by someone else since ancient times. It was only after I gained control of the heavenly Tao that this invisible suppression was undone. In the future, there will probably be even greater changes. Du Xiaofu said with a slight frown. When he gained control of the heavenly Tao, he discovered some strange things. He felt that the suppression of this world, which was the power of the invisible laws, seemed to have been interfered with by someone. There's such a situation. Zhen Qingchen, Du Xiaoyao, Jialo Jueyu, and the others were also shocked. To be able to affect the invisible laws of this world, how powerful was the person who interfered behind the scenes? Could there really be an existence much more powerful than the lords of the 3,000 sectors and the dragon god? We'll find out in the future. Du Xiaofu gently raised his head and looked at the boundless void. He definitely wouldn't be able to find the answer to all of this by himself. He could only go to the outside world to find it. Perhaps the lords of the 3,000 sectors and the dragon god could tell him. Everyone didn't say much on this topic and continued to talk about many things with Du Xiaofu. He told them everything that had happened in the days before his resurrection without any details. So in the outside world, there are 33 heavens, countless small worlds, and the 18 layers of hell. The cultivators there are divided into the awakened, see-through, returning to void, seizing God, severing truth, immortal, meditative, carrying Tao, and formless realm. The Sky Saint realm is equivalent to the seizing God realm. Does that mean that if I go to the 33 heavens, I can directly have the strength of the severing truth realm? That girl Xingyu went to the 33 heavens with her master. The heavenly wood divine tree ancestor is related to the Beigong clan. Dongli Qingqing also went to the outside world. The lords of the 3,000 sectors and the dragon god sent people to help me. If there's a chance, I'll have to thank them properly. Chapter 2691. Reuniting after nearly a year, Du Xiaofu had too much to say to everyone. Du Xiaofu was also digesting the information he had received. With his current cultivation, he should be in the truth-severing realm in the 33 heavens, but Du Xiaofu felt that something was wrong. Although he had surpassed the Sky Saint realm after fusing with the complete law of lightning, he had also surpassed the seizing God realm. Although there was a huge difference between the Sky Saint realm and the realm beyond the Sky Saint realm, Du Xiaofu felt that there was still a gap between it and the truth-severing realm. Perhaps there was still some difference between the Sky Saint realm and the truth-severing realm. Let's not think about it anymore. After I go to the 33 heavens, I'll have a good understanding and see what the seizing God realm and the truth-severing realm are all about. Du Xiaofu whispered to himself. Rather than cracking his head trying to figure it out, it was better to go to the outside world and understand it in detail. It was almost dawn when everyone left the hall. Then, accompanied by many experts, Du Xiaofu went to the Huang nation's ancestral temple to pay his respects to Huolei Laozu and Lei Tianhuang. These two people had come to this world because of the fall of their ancestors and could be considered as members of the Du family. And it was because of their fearless sacrifice that Du Xiaofu was able to fuse with the complete law of lightning in the battle with the demon god, which gave him the strength to fight. Du Xiaofu felt even more inexplicably sad about their fall after his resurrection. In another 2 months, it will be exactly a year until the end of the great calamity. In the name of the Huang nation, I summon all the forces in the 3 continents and Kyushu to pay respects to the heroic spirits who died in the great calamity at the end of the year. Du Xiaofu said softly as he looked at the memorial tablets of Huolei Laozu and Lei Tianhuang. Too many people had died in the great calamity. Other than Huolei Laozu and Lei Tianhuang, Du Xiaofu was familiar with Mu Qingge, Feng Wuxia, Lai Jiao, Mang Yuan, Ren Yuan, Yao Tianwu, Jiang Yiting, Jialo Jiuekong, Rainbow Moon, Ji Tsang, Di Lang, Xiaoyao, Xian Tu, Bai Qi, O Shuo, Xiang Wushuang, Xiang Zhangsheng, Daoist Qing Feng, Su Yangzi, Feng Han, Feng Wu, Ninefold Spirit, Saint Feng Qi, Dongli Ruoshu, Thunderhawk King, Mia Meng Wang, Phantom, Bloodvine, and so on. It was precisely because there were so many heroes fighting on the battlefield that the devil religion's losses didn't reach a terrifying level. Even though blood flowed like rivers, corpses piled up like mountains, and devastation filled the world, there were still many living beings who had survived. Those heroes who had died in battle deserved to be remembered by everyone in this world. We had plans for this matter before, but because we didn't know when you would wake up, we put it on hold for a few days. Don't worry, I will make the arrangements. It's enough for us to worry about these things. Yi Wuming nodded and said to Du Xiaofu. It's been hard on you all these years, Lao. Du Xiaofu turned around and looked at the old man beside him. He couldn't help but be surprised. With Yi Lao here, he didn't have to worry about these things. Moreover, he had long been accustomed to being a hands-off manager. Almost all the affairs of the desolate country were handled by Yi Lao and Morong Yoruo. But today, Du Xiaofu had already controlled the heavenly Tao of this world. The desolate country was invincible in this world. Even if the main clans of the legalism, the school of famers, and the school of vertical and horizontal sent people here, they wouldn't be able to cause any trouble. The power of the desolate country had already reached its peak. At the very least, it could no longer advance in this world. At a time like this, there were still many things that depended on Yi Lao. Du Xiaofu felt that he owed Yi Lao. I'm already used to it. Yi Lao teased Du Xiaofu. Then, he looked deeply at the young man before him. He suddenly sighed and said, I never would have thought. The little guy who used to fool me in every possible way and spouted nonsense in front of me back then has already grown to such a level. Now that I think about it, everything is like a dream. It doesn't seem real at all. Yi Wuming narrowed his eyes slightly. He smiled at Du Xiaofu and said, back then, I was only a little martial king. But for some reason, I believed your bold words. Of course, it was also because of your rapid rise and endless resources that I was able to enter the Saint Martial realm. Otherwise, I'm afraid that today, I would only be a domain realm cultivator at most, or even a revered realm cultivator. Yi Lao, it was because of your existence that I had enough time to concentrate on cultivation. You have contributed greatly to the desolate country's current strength. If it wasn't for you, it wouldn't have been so easy for the desolate country to rise so quickly. As Du Xiaofu spoke, his expression suddenly became fierce. Furthermore, it's not enough for us to dominate this world. Even if we go to the 33 heavens, some people will have to give us a place. Of course, he already knew that before he woke up, the people of legalism, school of famous scholars, and school of vertical and horizontal had come to the desolate country to show off their strength. Regarding this, even though Du Xiaoba, Du Xiaolin, and Du Xiaohuang had already dealt with those people miserably enough, Du Xiaofu did not plan to let it go just like that. After going to the 33 heavens, these debts would have to be properly settled. Medicine Saint Yi Wuming looked at Du Xiaofu's expression and could not help but laugh. He pointed at his nose and said, "I knew you were someone who couldn't stay idle. Wherever you go, trouble follows. It seems that the 33 heavens will definitely be very lively soon." Faced with Yi Lao's teasing, Du Xiaofu helplessly and innocently spread out his hands and said, "I'm not someone who causes trouble, but if someone wants to ride on my head and behave atrociously, then I definitely can't tolerate it. I have to think of a way to make them restrain themselves." In response to Du Xiaofu's words, Du Xiaoyao, Little Xingxing, and Jin Qingchun chuckled at the same time and did not comment. "I've gotten used to being busy these past few years. Once this great calamity is over, there will be no power in the world that can compete with the desolate country. To be honest, I'm not used to this sudden free time. When you go to the 33 heavens, you must bring me with you," Yi Wuming said with a smile. His meaning was very clear. If Du Xiaofu went to the outside world, he would be willing to stay by his side and help him deal with many matters. No matter where the desolate country develops, it will naturally be without Yi Lao's help. However, the 33 heavens cannot be compared to this world. There are countless experts there, and great powers have been entrenched for countless years. Their strength is unimaginable. So at the beginning, it's better for you to stay in this world. Wait until we have laid down a certain foundation, then we can bring more people over," Du Xiaofu said after some thought. In truth, he already had a certain number of people who would go to the 33 heavens. However, he was not in a hurry to do this. He planned to stay in this world for a few more days and spend some time with his family and friends. After paying his respects to Huolei Laozu and Lei Tianhuang, Du Xiaofu parted with the others and returned to his residence. He began to carefully think about some things related to controlling the heavenly way. Using a broad mind to encompass the world, becoming all things and experiencing all the laws in the world, I've truly come into contact with the heavenly way's true meaning and grasped that invisible law in my hands. Du Xiaofu was not in a hurry and was completely calm. In other words, right now, I can directly mobilize all the power in this world for my own use. This world is no different from me. If I prosper, we prosper, and if I suffer, we suffer. It's because my cultivation has surpassed the heavenly saint realm that I can control the heavenly way's laws, causing the suppression of the world in this world to lessen. I just don't know what kind of changes will happen to this world as my cultivation continues to increase. Du Xiaofu muttered to himself, feeling great anticipation in his heart. It could be said that after controlling the heavenly way, the benefits he obtained were immense. No matter what kind of expert came to this world, they would be bound by the invisible law. Du Xiaofu himself was this world, and he could use the power here as he pleased. In this world, he was the supreme being. He stood above everything, and no one could defeat him. As his cultivation increased, the suppression would become smaller and smaller, and it might even disappear in the end. At that time, who knew what kind of situation this world would develop into? However, Du Xiaofu could faintly feel that there were some people who could threaten his life. Furthermore, if he died, although this realm would also suffer a calamity of destruction, it would not truly perish. After losing him, the controller of the laws, perhaps the entire world would have to start from scratch. Under the cycle of time, it would gradually recover its vitality. Where does the suppressive force of this world come from? Who has such great ability to affect the invisible laws of this world? Du Xiaofu was extremely puzzled, and he could not understand the origin of the suppression of the world. After controlling the heavenly way, he could see through much more than before. Even though he controlled the heavenly way of this world, he could not change the laws. He could only mobilize them for his own use. In reality, the suppression of this world was becoming smaller and smaller because of his actions. Evidently, someone had done something to this world, or something major had happened a long time ago, which affected the true meaning of the laws of this world. Perhaps this world was originally in existence on the same level as the 33 heavens, but because of the invisible suppression, it actually limited the strength of experts like the Lord of the 3,000 vast worlds and the Dragon God to surpass the heavenly saint realm after coming here. What had happened here in the distant past? Now, let's try what it feels like to mobilize the power of the world. Du Xiaofu put aside the many messy thoughts in his mind and became a little excited. He closed his eyes slightly, and with a thought, he spread out along the tracks of the order between heaven and earth. Then, images appeared in his mind, as if he was seeing them with his own eyes. He saw a fish as thick as a thumb swimming at the bottom of the 8,000-kilometer-long river in the central province, spitting out bubbles. He saw the memorial tablet of Huolei Laozu in the demon world's holy demon hall. He saw the tomb of the heavenly way that originally existed in the depths of the heaven burial wasteland in the ancient wasteland, but it was now a flat land, and there was no trace of it at all. Every scene in this world was under Du Xiaofu's observation. Whether it was the big picture or the small details, they all fell into his perception. Moreover, in the process of spying, he did not emit the slightest ripple of power, and no expert could detect it. This ability was much stronger than relying on the power of the origin spirit. Wind on the flat land. With a thought, Du Xiaofu controlled the invisible power of the rules to change. Then, a fierce wind suddenly appeared between heaven and earth, whistling fiercely, and blowing the branches and leaves inside and outside, causing them to shake incessantly. Sudden rainstorm. Du Xiaofu's thought changed, and the fierce wind suddenly stopped. Then, large patches of dark clouds gathered, and the light in the entire Kyushu domain of the 3 continents dimmed in an instant. A heavy downpour suddenly came, and a black mass fell from the sky. However, when the heavy rain was about to touch the ground, it suddenly disappeared, as if it had never happened, and there was no trace of it. This scene made the countless living beings in this world feel baffled for a long time. No one knew that this was the result of Du Xiaofu showing off his skills in private when he was in high spirits. To be able to achieve such an effect with a small show of skill, it's indeed valiant. In the room, Du Xiaofu laughed happily. He had only played a little, and it had caused such a huge change. If it was in the past, it would have been a little inconceivable. If he purely relied on his own strength, with his strength that surpassed the heavenly saint stage, he would have to unleash more than half of his strength to achieve this. Du Xiaofu was very satisfied with the ability he had after controlling the heavenly path. Nevertheless, he did not waste too much time on this. He slowly opened his eyes and looked at the door. Creak, under the guidance of his qi, the door opened with a slight creak. Then, Ouyang Shuang walked in from outside. "You're here." Du Xiaofu chuckled as he stood up and walked towards her. After Ouyang Shuang entered the room, the door was once again closed by Du Xiaofu. "Why are you closing the door in the middle of the day?" Seeing Du Xiaofu's actions, Ouyang couldn't help but roll her eyes at Du Xiaofu, and said coquettishly. "So what if it's daytime? I'm whispering to my wife behind closed doors. Who cares?" The corner of Du Xiaofu's mouth suddenly curled up into a faint smirk, his eyebrows raised as he spoke confidently. "Who's your wife?" Ouyang Shuang frowned and retorted at Du Xiaofu. Then, she ignored his words and said, "The commotion just now must have been caused by you again, right? You're starting to show off after growing a bit, aren't you? When can you restrain yourself a little?" The current Ouyang Shuang was also at the peak of the sage stage. Perhaps she only needed a little bit of opportunity to step into the half-step heavenly saint stage or even the heavenly saint stage. In this entire realm, he was considered one of the top experts. For this shrewd woman, she only needed to think for a moment to know that the strange scene of wind and rain outside was definitely caused by Du Xiaofu. What's the big deal about that little trick? Your husband still has more skills that I can't wait to show off. I just need your cooperation. I wonder if my wife is willing to satisfy me. The smile on Du Xiaofu's face grew even wider as he walked towards Ouyang Shuang step by step. That face directly moved closer to Ouyang Shuang. Get away from me. How could Ouyang Shuang not know what this guy was planning? She immediately exploded and pushed Du Xiaofu's chest, as if she wanted to chase him away. However, the slender hand that was pushing towards Du Xiaofu was grabbed by the other party. I'm your husband. As a wife, you have to listen to your husband. Du Xiaofu grabbed Ouyang Shuang's jade-like hand and smiled mischievously. With a light pull of her arm, she pulled that delicate and soft body into her embrace. Following that, a pair of demonic claws started to rub at a certain place behind him that was perky. The wet and soft feeling that came from his fingertips caused Du Xiaofu's blood to immediately boil. Ouyang Shuang's cheeks instantly turned red, all the way to her jade neck. Where are you putting your hands? Ouyang Shuang gritted her teeth, stretched out her 10 fingers, and grabbed Du Xiaofu's arms, and fiercely twisted them. Aoo! Du Xiaofu let out a miserable howl that sounded like a pig being slaughtered, piercing through the clouds. It hurts. Tomboy, let go. Du Xiaofu cried out in pain, and his face was about to contort. Even though he had the immortal profound body and was difficult to injure, falling into the hands of this tomboy still caused him to feel incomparable pain. Who told you not to be honest? Not only did Ouyang Shuang not let go, she even increased her strength and fiercely pinched him in a circle. The pain caused Du Xiaofu's face to twitch, and his eyes were about to shine with stars. Tomboy, let go of me, or else I'll make sure you suffer the consequences today. Du Xiaofu shouted loudly, but he did not have the slightest intention of begging for mercy. Heh, it seems like you've grown up, you dare to yell at me. I want to see how you're going to make me suffer the consequences. Ouyang Shuang smiled slyly. She was not angry at Du Xiaofu's words. On the contrary, she gently raised her face and looked at Du Xiaofu with her bright and gentle eyes. She blinked twice and smiled sweetly. My dear husband, I really want to see how you're going to make me suffer the consequences. Don't disappoint me. Ouyang Shuang's delicate face pressed into Du Xiaofu's face. Her red lips were just inches away, and her jade-like nose was almost touching Du Xiaofu's face. She looked incomparably delicate and beautiful. However, in her almond eyes, there was a murderous glint. Du Xiaofu's eyes changed several times. He wanted to beg for mercy, but he did not say it. In this world, the only person who could make his heart tremble the most was this woman in front of him. This tomboy did not hold back at all when she made her move. Every move she made would cause people to doubt their life. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.